Is he got a prop?
No. I think it's his pet. Is this dog?
It's a prop.
Oh, shit.
I knew it.
Hello.
It's just getting... Wait. This looks way too serious business and like actually like a real movie thing. Did you actually buy this from a lot or something?
I got a good one.
He does.
Yeah,
Wait, Ralph, have you not seen the picture of Jake in the full costume?
I actually have
It's
seen
so
that picture.
good.
Yes,
This
of
is
course.
the same. Yeah, I'm Vengeance. I'm the Knight. You know, whatever.
no
definitely
big
are.
deal.
Yeah.
Welcome
course.
to Friends Per Second. This is episode 57. It's a podcast where some friends gather to talk about the newest games. I'm Jake Baldino, of course. I'm joined by Ralph, aka Skillup, and
Hello.
Lucy James. How are you?
I'm doing all right. For audio listeners, Jake put on a Batman cowl, by the way.
Do the voice.
Do the voice.
I actually can't do the. I'm.
Oh, yeah,
incapable
everyone
of
can do
doing
the voice. Don't bullshit. Do a voice.
Which one? Like
the-
Conroy or Pattinson or Bateman?
No, Bateman.
Like, ugh. No, hang on. It's not
Have
who
you
I am,
seen
but
any
what I-
of the Nolan films?
It's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me.
That's it. Sort of. We're
I
getting
gotta
there.
get this thing
We're
off my
making-
head.
Where
I'm
is
suffocating already.
she?
Gotta
Rachel.
get you in a recording booth. That's it.
Yeah. I was
Every
going to
time I
say,
hear
does
the
that
name-
not get hot?
Every time I hear the name Rachel, actually, I immediately say it again in the
Rachel.
Batman voice to myself. Yeah, exactly.
Jake, is that not... What does that smell like? Is it not get hot?
So it's interesting. So actually, like, you know the way the cowl works, the way his mouth is here, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
So all the sweat builds up here along the bridge of your nose, like under your nose, and then it
Nice.
all leaks down onto your lips. It is the weirdest, most uncomfortable thing to have at a Halloween party when you're talking to someone and having a beer,
Sure.
and then it's just, it's bad. It's really bad, but you
Nice.
feel powerful.
Yeah, do you
I
think
know, I'm the
Bruce
best
Wayne had to deal
5'11"
with that?
5'11" Batman ever.
I was gonna say.
Nah, man, there's no way. There's no way.
They call me
that,
absolute Batman.
Any of them were any taller than like 5'11". Come on now, let's be real.
Who's this
Hollywood
one?
actors?
I think George Clooney was the teeniest Batman.
Is he?
How tall is George
Alright.
Clooney? Like 5'9"?
Hey Google, how tall is George Clooney? 5 feet 11 inches tall.
5'11". There you go.
There you go.
All right.
I secretly think like Adam West might actually be the tallest. He just has like 6'1" energy about him. I don't
Yeah,
know.
he's got that freak old Hollywood body. He's probably like a
yeah,
giant.
yeah.
What are we talking about? This is
Video games.
Yeah. All right. So this is a pretty stacked week. We got Dragon Age: The Veilguard out. Reviews are out. You guys have been playing it. We also talked to Paul Tassi from Forbes about it. Pretty good conversation. Everybody kind of feels a little bit differently about the game. That was fun. We're also talking to Ryan Payton, head of Camouflage, the studio behind Batman Arkham Shadow. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff. I think
Yeah.
we should just roll into our first conversation, right?
I think so. I think
All right,
that's
let's
what's
do
on
it.
that's what's on the thumbnail probably.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah,
So-
makes sense.
We are going to jump in, talk about Dragon Age: The Veilguard with Paul Tassi from Forbes. So let's roll it now.
Was that an earthquake?
Oh no! Oh no! Just add it to
San
the
Fran,
pile.
just San Fran things.
You want to check real quick?
Yes, it was.
It was an earthquake.
It was, yes.
Oh my god.
That was a very, very small one. Bay Area 3.2.
Oh my god, that is so wild.
Isn't 3.2 big? What the fuck?
Earthquake scales are weird.
Oh, no,
so-
no,
How long did
wait,
it last for?
Wait. Yeah, it is the 29th. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yep. All right. Well,
Jesus.
it was like I barely felt anything. It was like a...
What a way to start
That's
our,
a really
good
our
way to
Dragon
start.
Age discussion block.
Yeah, we should do it.
Yeah.
We should do
The
it from
game
now.
that's shaken the internet. It's Dragon Age.
First of all, are you okay?
Yes. Like genuinely nothing wobbled. I just felt a bit... I was either like, I'm going to faint, or that was an earthquake.
Okay.
Well, I don't know,
Well,
it was good.
sort of glad it was the latter, right? In a
Yeah.
way. So long as nobody else got hurt, just as a disclaimer, it's all fine.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we are gathered here today to talk about Dragon Age: The Veilguard. There's a lot of opinions out there online, but I want to be told what to think by 3 people I know and respect. So that's what we're doing here today, because I haven't really played it. So we wanted to have a good discussion. I'm just going to kind of be the moderator. Paul, thank you for being here. I would love to just off the top just get your top level thoughts because I didn't read your piece. I'm sorry.
No worries. I liked the game. I would say I liked it the average amount because I gave it an 8.5. It's got about an 84 Metascore, so I don't know. That aligned pretty well. I always say this up front, I'm not a Dragon Age person. And if everyone wants to, write off my opinion, I totally understand that. This is just not a series I've really vibed with, even though I love Mass Effect. So coming into it, I don't want to front like I'm some big Dragon Age person. Reviewing it how it is, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time with it, despite some pretty glaring flaws here and there. 65 hours, 80% completion, roll credits. I really tried to put it through its paces, and ultimately, yeah, I did come out liking it quite a bit.
Lucy, what about you? You're still playing through it currently?
Yes, I'm at the end of about Act 1. I think I'm about 20 hours in. I've been traveling a lot, as always.
Sure.
And I mean, yeah, I'm mixed on it because I think top line, like Paul said, there are definitely some glaring things. When I played the preview build, and also for disclosure's sake and for disclaimer's sake, I mentioned this last time I talked about Dragon Age. I'm in a video where I play the character creator that's on Gamespot fandom, and it's brought to you by Dragon Age, so you can take my opinion with a grain of salt. I'm in that video because I'm a big Dragon Age fan, and I just played the character creator. So there you go. I am on the fence about it. There are some things I really, really like, and there are some parts of the gameplay loop where I feel as if I'm really getting into it and I am really pushing forward. But I think those moments, at least in the first 20 hours, are fewer and further between than I would like. And there are also some writing issues that I am not a fan of, I don't think work for me. The big thing, weirdly, my biggest bugbear is about the loot economy, which we can definitely get to. It's actually very frustrating for me because it's actually changed how I interact and interface with the game itself. But in terms of good stuff, there are lore things, there are character moments that I will definitely remember. I do, especially because I replayed Inquisition fairly recently. I played a few hours, a big chunk of that game. I was like, God, holding right trigger the game. I am enjoying the combat a lot more. I think it's beautiful. I think those environments are stunning. It runs exceptionally well. So I'm very, very mixed about it. It's not the, oh my God, I'm playing Mass Effect 3 and I know this is a masterpiece kind of feeling, but I'm not devastated by it. I'm not completely disappointed by it. It is just firmly on the fence.
Sure.
Well, Ralph, you are the one who was, I guess,
Yeah.
Hey, Ralph, I haven't heard anything about how you feel about it.
Yeah, so you're the one. You're not the contrarian. I guess sort of the contrarian with this.
Yeah,
you're not
realistically,
really into it.
yeah.
So,
and I feel like
is there what's the one big thing? If you could sum it all to one big thing that disappointed you.
I think the one big thing to me is that I just feel as though it's an incredibly surface level video game. I don't think not a single component is deep or particularly well thought out or rewarding. I just think I think it really apes those superficial elements of a BioWare game where it's we need to have some choice, and you do have choices, but 90% of the time they don't mean anything. Do you know what I mean? They're just choosing between this thing or that thing, but it doesn't really matter. And it's got romances, but again, it's you just sort of click the heart button, and then when you do make a choice, it doesn't really mean anything. Again, you can't change your mind, and other characters do not react to that choice and get jealous or anything like that. I think the companion quest lines are so isolated from the rest of the game, no effort made to sort of unify them within that main quest. I think the combat is extremely basic. It presents really flashy, but when you spend prolonged amounts of time with it, it's just so mindless. It really is. The inability to your teammates don't even have health bars. Do you know what I mean? You use one of their abilities and they all go on cooldown. You only want to use the same one or two abilities on them all the time because the primer detonator system, it doesn't even feel any different when you have one companion in your party versus the other. Functionally, it feels identical to be playing alongside Tash as it does to be playing alongside, Lucanus or whatever. You don't even notice who's in your party. I forget sometimes who am I fighting alongside because it doesn't matter. So all of those things in aggregate made this a very frustrating game for me because I just felt like it was doing the absolute bare minimum for what it was gesturing toward.
Where is the, for you guys who are enjoying it, where is some of that BioWare flair? Is that a thing, or does this feel like just a great game by a completely different group of people?
I would say there is a good amount of BioWare in here, even if some of it can kind of come across as an imitation of BioWare. One thing I think they've done is really kind of triple down on companion stuff. And there are aspects that aren't as deep, but I'm not kidding when I think like 60-70% of this game is some form of companion related quest. Like in Mass Effect, you might have like a hangout session and then a big mission to resolve their thing, and then they're loyal. There's like 5 or 6 missions in each quest line and like 4 or 5 hangouts, to the point of like maybe it's a little excessive at times. But what that does, and then these kind of like interim conversations back at base where you like walk in on 2 people talking, it really, over time, it took a while, I would say, for this to happen. It does feel like they have, genuinely assembled the team dynamic that clearly they were going for, and maybe they're, pushing that a little hard, but it worked. I think it fundamentally worked for me, and characters that I was sort of unsure about at the beginning did end up being people I really cared about and cared about their fates and stuff by the end of that. My romantic quest line, I would say, did not go the way I was hoping. I wanted, like Ralph said, I wanted to change my mind, but it was too late, and now I got to do a whole new playthrough. But that's that's how these games go.
I wanted to ask, there is something about the romances, because I am not there yet. I mean, I've zeroed in on Lucanus, and he kind of has earned the. He is not Garrus Vicarian. No one is Garrus Vicarian. But like Garrus would always get a slot in my party wherever I'm going. Like that is my default now in Dragon Age is Lucanus. They made a whole thing about like if you don't date any of them, they'll date each other. Did that happen to either of you? Okay.
Yes.
That's cool.
So what happened? This was kind of a funny dynamic where. Okay, so I was romancing Balara, and you flirt with everyone just to see where things go. And by that point I was like, I don't know, Balara's kind of getting on my nerves a bit. But I really enjoyed spending time with Nev. And then I'm like, okay, well next heart conversation I'm really gonna like, try to pursue Nev. And then I'm not gonna get into spoilers, but other party members start expressing their interests in these people. And then there was another love interest. I was, I'm like, okay, maybe them too. And then another party member's like, I think so-and-so would be, and so by the end there were 2 other couples within my party that was like some sort of romantic relationship, which is, I think, an interesting dynamic, but it made me stop my potential pursuit of Nev, because I was like, well, I don't want to be a dick, so I'm just I'll let her go, maybe next playthrough. But yes, that is something that happens, which I thought was actually kind of neat.
But also, just to be clear about that, like all it is just like a conversation where it's like, oh, I think you guys like it. I think you guys like each other. Have fun with that, and that's all it is.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's it. So again, I think it's another example of what I'm talking about, where it's like, yeah, there's a cutscene where 2 people express some interest in each other, but does that manifest itself in any other way?
It's not.
It did in a few ways. There was some dialogue about that after the fact, and if something like perilous is happening to someone, another person would express some concern. I mean, not a ton, but there were some lines in there.
I never got any of that sort of stuff when I had that sort of same thing manifest for me. So maybe there's more of that. Or you're saying there is more than that appears
somewhere.
Here.
I don't.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's not walking in on Garrus and Tally in the engine room in Mass Effect.
It's not that.
Does the game have like, as you guys playing it, reviewing it before it's out, do you foresee people who like Dragon Age like attaching to a character? Like, is there an Astarion or is there a Garrus or like something like that for this in the discourse that you or is going to be in the discourse?
I mean, I could offer my. I mean, yeah, Lucy, what do you think? Because I know you're really into Lucanus, for example, and that's like a good.
And also,
what do you think?
I mean, the thing is that like you could have asked me that question when I was playing Dragon Age Inquisition ahead of time, and I could not have told you that people would be so attached to Solus. Like,
Solus is low key hot, man.
I mean, yeah,
He's still
but,
he's
like,
still the low key
No,
hottest person
no.
in this.
I don't
Yeah,
like-
man, 100%.
But,
I still
I
think
mean-
he's the low key hottest person in this game as well, for real, man.
okay, look,
100%. No, that's what I think. That's what I think.
no,
I'm
but
just-
you
I'm
know,
just saying
so
aloud.
I think all of them will find their own. Like, there will be ships happening. There will be so much fan art. Like, I think it's very rare to have such a standout as a Garrus Vicarian or an Astarian. Hell, I don't even think Larian really expected Astarian to explode in popularity as
No
much
way,
as
as
he
if
did.
you wouldn't.
I mean,
Nah,
well, I
come
mean, you can
on.
always hope, but like,
Please.
There's a lot of good characters though, so you
Yeah,
never
oh, I
know
mean,
Yeah.
which one's going to
absolutely.
break out.
Well, I think that's an interesting thing because, just comparing the depth of a character like Astarian to, and I mean, Paul, you've done a full playthrough now. Like, do you think, because we start talking about like writing quality and depth of characterization, and you obviously played through Baldur's Gate 3 as well, I assume.
Parts
No.
of it. I
Okay, right.
did 20 hours. And,
Okay.
It's an incredible game. I don't like turn-based combat.
Fair enough,
I
fair enough.
I tried, but
Yeah,
story
I-
stuff amazing, characters amazing. But
Yeah.
I put 20 in.
Sure, fair. I think that the gulf between the depth of those characters, could not be more vast. I mean, you look at someone like Astarian, it's just his personal story, the delivery, that the performance of that actor, like the depth of the writing, the pain. Like, you go back and watch that scene at the end of his storyline. It's just, I just think it's a totally different league, and I'm sure there'll be some.
You can't do like. Obviously, Baldur's Gate is essentially better in every way from a quality perspective. Like,
Sure.
I get that people will make this comparison, but like in 1,000 out of 1,000 universes, Dragon Age Veilguard is not as good as Baldur's Gate. So even as someone who liked Veilguard, like you're right, it does not compare in terms of the depth of characterization.
Yes.
That said, I think with the original question, where will people attach to these characters? Like, I think Lucy's right. And I think, not to speak for the core Dragon Age fans, which I'm not, but this does feel like a game where people will get attached to some of these characters, and everyone, not everyone, but people will pick favorites. I really liked the old necromancer guy. Like,
Emmerich.
I just thought he was always in my party. He was such a good character because you're like, oh, a necromancer, like he's, going to be evil and whatever, but he's like this most charming, like,
He has Giles from
Alfred
Buffy.
Pennyworth guy.
Giles from
Yeah.
Buffy energy.
Yes,
Yeah, he does.
exactly. So like he was my favorite character and someone who will probably stick with me. But no one Astarian, no one on the level of Garrus. So can't say it goes that far, certainly.
Yeah.
I feel like for me, the big thing I've just been wanting to know is, like, was it worth the wait? Because I feel like it felt like they were working on this game for so long. We know it had been kind of like restarted. So I don't maybe it's like the years shouldn't, like, my expectations shouldn't be lumped onto that, but like, yeah, I mean, Ralph, I know you're like the harshest on this. So Paul, do you feel, especially as someone who isn't a Dragon Age person but has heard about this game for years and years and years, are you playing it and you're like, wow, this is really the next big thing from them, like they poured all this money and time into it?
I think it is a sign of improvement because, I mean, Inquisition was a decade ago, which seems insane. Like, when you think it does not seem like a decade ago. And then since then, there's only been Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem in terms of like their big, mainline releases. And I was just going back through the scores of those. Anthem had a 53. Like, man, like I knew Anthem was a bomb, but man, that's rough to see. And I think they're in the process of at least hoping they're turning things around. I do not think most people are going to come out of this and being like, classic BioWare's back. Like, they did it. They reversed the narrative. And I have seen some people say it's their best game since Mass Effect 2 or 3. That seems extreme to me. That's I don't think that's going to be the overall narrative. But in terms of like, was it worth the wait for Dragon Age fans specifically? That's probably not for me. But in terms of like where BioWare itself has come over the last decade, I think this is as much of a win as we were probably going to get. And it does not make me like unhopeful for Mass Effect now. I think I have to temper expectations for that too, because this is not old BioWare. It's just not going to be so many people are gone. It's a new team. So if they can put out something that is at least this enjoyable, that will be a good start for me. If we're getting back into, 9.5, 10 Mass Effect 2, 3 range like that, seems unlikely, but of course I would obviously love if that did happen.
Yeah, I mean, the going from, to use Mass Effect again as an example, it's like it's one of those things where it's like you hear about why the development of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was so much easier, because those developers had just worked on this one game, Final Fantasy VII Remake, and then they went straight into, same team, straight into Rebirth, and they knew that game, that world, how the machine it was going to play on worked. And, you know, talking to the director of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, he was like, it was actually really enjoyable to work on. I spoke to, you know, like Mac Walters a couple of years ago, and I was like, oh, you know, I heard that, you know, the development of Mass Effect 2 and 3 was, you know, was pretty short turnaround. And he said like the same thing. It was like really like the team gelled, the team figured it out. They knew what they were doing. And so they were working towards that end goal. And obviously you can take the stuff about the ending and figure that out separately.
Sure.
But, you know, as a team working together and stuff, from what it sounds like, Dragon Age Veilguard, it's 10 years. You are not going to have those. And there were rumors that was going to be a completely different game, like live service. And, you know, taking the bricks of that and trying to put it into a different thing. And that's, I think, one of, maybe, I'm speculating here, but I think the issues I have about the loot economy is that it feels live servicey and that I don't care about it at all. I think it's so needlessly overwhelming. And the way that the reason I said it's ruined the way I interface and I interact with the game is because there's crafting, or like you just basically collect a bunch of shit that you sell to merchants that doesn't really matter. But you go into a room and there will be like gold pots around the room, tons of them. So your first instinct is to look at the floor and go around and collect every little pot. And then maybe there'll be a chest, and maybe that chest will have a slightly better crafting material. Then once you've completed an area or like done a puzzle or beat a very hard boss, then you'll get a bigger chest, and that will actually have the thing that you want in it. But because we are magpies drawn to every little thing that glows and, you know, oh, shiny, I must have it. I go into every place, and Dragon Age Veilguard is a beautiful game. I don't care so much for the character art or the character kind of art design, but the environments are stunning. And I really hate that every time I go into a room, I immediately just look at the floor, because that's what my eye is trained to do, and it's what I am trained to do as a player. And then I take that into a menu, and I'm like, well, no, I don't even take it into the menu, because I open the chest, I click back, and I compare. Is it green? Is it arrow up? Or is it is it red arrow down? If it's green arrow up, I immediately just swap it out. Like, I don't have any attachment to anything. And I think that's a real big shame. And I wonder if it is this vestigial thing left over from live service. Because it feels like there are so many armor sets. So many weapons. And they're all beautiful. Like, someone designed and made all of these. There are so many sets of casual wear. Like, Commander Shepard had maybe 10 if you had DLC.
Yeah, and then they were all just different color swaps.
Yeah, and like obviously in Inquisition there was a bunch of stuff too, but nothing really on the scale of this. And it just feels like, like, again, this Theseus's ship of a game, of a developer. But that's
I can offer a counter to this, because this is something I actually thought they did pretty well, and I got more and more into it in time. I agree with your magpie thing. I did sort of get tired of having to collect every little glittering thing on the ground, but I really did like what they did with loot in the end, because it's a looter in the sense that, like, okay, there's rarities and they go up over time, but all you're doing is essentially finding a dupe of whatever the thing is, piece of armor, a weapon, and the higher you go, you unlock a new perk every time you dupe it. And the reason there's so many in the end is because you can actually create some very fun builds based on, like, all these different play styles. And, you know, Ralph is right in the sense that, like, combat itself can be repetitive, but I think once you really start leaning into a combination of both the skill tree and the gear, and, like, there's unique gear that does some, like, really insane things that you can just base an entire build around, I think that's where combat becomes more interesting and when looting becomes interesting, because like, yeah, I don't care about the stuff on the ground, but you know, there's 140 of these chests around, and some are very easy to find. Some they will just give you. Some of them are actually pretty difficult when you get to some of the higher end hidden ones. So I always felt motivated to, you know, do these little puzzles, whether they're easy or hard, and either, you know, dupe stuff up to get more perks on my guy or my companions. And by the end I had like a really cool build that was cooking, and it felt good in a way that didn't feel like a loot grind. It just felt like I want you to explore this level and find all these chests, and then yes, you're not going to use 80% of the stuff, but since it's auto duped and it auto unlocks the perks, you can switch anytime and try out a totally different build, and you can respec all of your perks instantly. So while enemy diversity and encounter diversity is lacking somewhat, I thought they actually did a pretty good job with this like action style gameplay, which is very arcadey, and I know it's very unlike the series, but in terms of how loot plays into it, by the end I was actually pretty impressed with that.
Okay. Yeah, I'll see how it gets going as I'm still playing, because yeah, I'm at level 20, you know, I can finally specialize my class and my character, and I'm just like, I don't want to be in menus, which is like, and I play a lot of RPGs. I'm in a lot of menus all the time, but yeah, I would rather just be. It kind of makes me feel like the stuff doesn't have as much value, at least at this point in the game, because I guess maybe I'm not. I have found like the occasional dupe, and it's unlocked a certain perk or something, but then I go to the caretaker in the lighthouse, and then I'm just like, well, I've upped the caretaker's thing, and I can unlock this, and it's a
make sure. Well, to you and everybody, always go to all the vendors, because the way you can dupe a lot of your best items is just straight buying it from the reputation vendors, and so it's less exploring and like, oh, I just automatically made this thing better and unlocked this thing, and that once I learned that, it streamlined a lot of not as many menus, just, you know, upgrade straight through that. So that was helpful, I thought.
How varied can you get with your builds? Like, I'm going in totally blind. I know it's like more of an action focused combat, but like, how distinct can you be as a character build?
So for example, my rogue, you know, they have a lot of like baseline necrosis skills, which is poison. And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to be dual poison blades guy, like not the most original thing, but this game drowns you in so many skill points that by the end I was like a bow and a half person also. And I found a unique set of armor where every time I aimed on sights, I slowed time. And so I'm like, well, I have to do bow stuff if I have that thing. So it was a combination of like, I could do distance, I could do close range. Then I found something that was, I think it's a unique ring or something, or maybe legendary, where it converts any source of poison damage into fire damage. And you can now make a complete fire-based build on your poison, you know, rogue. And then you can pair that with Tosh, who's a max burning stack, you know, damage over time fire person. So if you and her stack up your fire skills, then you're just burning all these things down. Tasha's a specialization where she does more detonation damage to dragons, so take her to a dragon fight, do all this fire stuff. So it's certainly not the most advanced system ever. Like, there were not like crazily diverse builds, but I think they do a good enough job at making things interesting enough to experiment with. I wish combat was a little more diverse. I wish enemy encounters were a little more diverse. And by the end, I was so overpowered. It was like, you know, what am I doing here? But I do think they do a pretty good job of that if you take the time to experiment with different builds and go out of your way to find all of your options. Because like, you kind of want all the legendary pieces, because making a half-ass build with like green gear is not really going to give you the same effect. So it does take a lot of work, but yes, I think there are opportunities there.
What is the biggest? I'm curious from you guys. What is the biggest fun factor element? Like, we've talked a lot about these things, but like, what's the most fun aspect of the game?
For me, it's lore stuff. Like, getting to go to places in Minrath, like Minrathis, that you have only heard of from BioWare games, from Dragon Age games. I think there are these really nice character moments. I definitely have the same criticisms as Ralph about like how it's, you know, it's not Paragon and Renegade. It's nice guy in different tones. But I think like at the heart of it, I do like these characters a lot. I do love the world of Thedas. I do love the lore of Dragon Age. I am like, the thing that's pulling me along is Solus. Like, coming back to him and what his plans are and his connection to Rook. I love that little what do they call him, the egg, or I guess Chuckles, but like I love that little guy. And I really want to see more of it. Like I want to see where it goes, because from what I'm hearing from the people who I know who do love it, they were like, oh, holy shit, Act 3, oh my God. And I think if you're a person who really digs Dragon Age, then from what it sounds like, there's going to be some big old choices and revelations in there. And that's the kind of stuff I'm excited to get to. I recently got to Tasha's acquisition mission. If you're thinking of it like Mass Effect terms of acquisition and loyalty. And it felt a little bit different. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. And then I really liked how they interfaced with like the party and how people are kind of getting together and like seeing the lighthouse fill up and change and mold itself. I really like that. That's the kind of shit that I really love. I'm not going to go around decorating it like it's The Sims, but the option is there for me if I want to. And so there are all these little moments. Let's say it's not any one particular thing. There are glimpses of stuff that I'm like, oh, is that going to pay off? Is that going to be really good? Like, you know, things that, again, I'm the magpie. The things that are drawing me around that my eye is drawn to. Also, in terms of the gameplay itself, the combat, I don't mind it. I think I'm not, maybe I know by, you know, the 60 plus hour mark, maybe it's very, very repetitive at that point. I'm in the point where I am still unlocking perks and abilities that feel unique enough. And I go in and I'm playing Rogue too. So I'm throwing my turret down and my ultimate is Rook as like a fucking minigun. Sure. But that's fun for me because also I think I'm at the point in the game where it's not boring, but I understand the language of it. I understand the language of each encounter and who to potentially bring into each level that I'm going to do. So I'm enjoying this kind of familiarity, I suppose you would call it. Like there isn't really this barrier for me in terms of mastery or understanding how the game works. And I think that also works in its favor when you come to level exploration because, you know, you've got those break 3 things puzzles and I'm like, yep, I know how to do that. And then, oh, cool, that took me 20 seconds. Okay, great. Little dopamine rush and I'll move on. It's not anything that's making me scratch my head and wonder what the hell am I doing here? Oh my God, I'm going to have to look this up. But it's fine. It's serviceable for me. And like, I think at the end of the day, if I'm going to be playing this, and I have been playing this in like 2-3 long hour stretches where missions are, you know, like some of the longer ones were 45 minutes and then you can knock out a couple of shorter ones. It's like it's a game that plays well in like those little chunks. I think I would, if I was playing it all day every day, I think I would be seeing the glue holding it all together a lot more. But
I am curious. I want to hear kind of like from Lucy and Ralph, like opposite ends here, but there's got to be other people out there like me. I only really was into the original Dragon Age. So what is it like? What would you say to me? Is this something I should play? Am I going to enjoy it? Like, is that a hard question?
I think, I mean, I absolutely loved Origins.
Yeah.
And I want to, I saw some responses saying that, like, I don't like BioWare games. I have not played BioWare games, that I never was a Dragon Age fan. None of those things are true. I've played, like, every single BioWare game ever. And I absolutely loved Origins. Yeah, of course, Jade Empire, absolutely.
A lot of people forget about Jade Empire. Okay,
sure,
good.
of course, absolutely. Good. So, and I loved Origins. Origins, I think, I still look back on that as a very influential game in terms of my love of video games. I think what it did in terms of the pivot, like the first truly cinematic RPG, you know, that pivot away from like Baldur's Gate CRPG format into this, it was revelatory at the time, you know. What they did was incredible, and I wasn't a bigger fan of 2. I didn't even finish 2, but I did play Inquisition, and I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it either, and I played some of the DLC, and I was like, yeah, this is fine broadly, you know. But, you know, look, I think I was never expecting it to be Origins, because I know that ship has sailed on that era of BioWare. Like, that ship has sailed so long ago, but, you know, I was still expecting something in the vicinity of, like, a Mass Effect with, like, you know, being able to shape a character through your dialogue choices and role play a persona and make decisions regularly that actually affect the flow of events, you know, both major and minor, you know, and so I think in answer to your question, there's nothing here that I think a Dragon Age Origins fan is going to like. The darkness of tone is not there. The combat is, the sophistication of the combat is not there. You know, the decisions are not there. We can get into the detail on that, but I fundamentally believe it's just they're not there. I would say, though, that, you know, if you're in that later phase of BioWare, when you're looking at like your Mass Effect 3 and your Andromeda or whatever, and you liked some of that, and you were interested in an even more distilled version of that, more focus on action, more focus on like a storyline, like a top line storyline, more focus on companion quests, you know, because that's a huge thing, as Paul said. Sure, I think that's what you'd be looking for. But that old BioWare, no, that's not a thing anymore. And I think that for me personally, that was a very important revelation that I came to while playing through this game, because it became clear to me that, like, I was still hoping that BioWare would make some steps back toward that older legacy. I was never expecting Origins, 100%. But I was like, if we could get just a little bit in that direction, cool. But it's extremely clear to me that that is not who BioWare are at this point, or where they're going. They're going a very different trajectory. They're going your sort of like action game with a little bit of light RPG sprinkled on top of it, right? And of course, Mass Effect games are already kind of like that, but this is even more in that direction, okay? And so I think that's what probably gives me... That's why I struggle to be excited about the future games, because I'm just not interested in this kind of game that they've made. This light drizzling of RPG. I'm like, you may as well not bother. Just make it a full action game at that point. So I'm not thinking or I'm not examining these RPG systems thinking, oh God, I wish this was more fleshed out. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, just commit to it as an action game at that point. So that's a long way of answering a question, but that's how I'd position. I don't know if you feel any different, Lucy.
I don't feel differently. I think also as well, you know, as someone who also played and loved Origins, I think it was as well, like it changed the way that I loved it. God, it was something like I didn't really play fantasy games before I played that one, despite loving fantasy as a
also came out of, I feel like it came out of nowhere. Maybe I wasn't like super plugged in at that point for a second, because to me it just like came out and it was like, BioWare made another thing? What is this? Holy shit.
Yeah. But I think it's just a very different game franchise now. It's become, like Ralph said, more and more towards action, and you got to decide if you're into that.
All right, well, more kind of like consumer questions for me, because I'm buying it when it comes out to talk about it and stuff. Does this feel like a game designed for like a jumping on point? Like, can someone just jump into this? Like, Paul, you said you don't have a lot of experience. Like, were you able to just get in, start to understand the world, get the feel, and go from there?
I was actually a little surprised by that, given, I mean, again, it's been a decade. I do know a cursory amount about Dragon Age. Like, I knew the whole Solus thing. You know, I've put a couple dozen hours into the series. I just never fully committed. I think I was maybe just not ready for Origins back in 2011. And like, maybe if I gave it another shot now, I'd feel different. But in terms of this game, I was impressed with the things it did, not just for the character arcs, but for the larger story. And even as someone who is not, you know, Mr. Dragon Age, I could tell that this Act 3 stuff everyone is hyping up are like big revelations about the world and the nature of this world and the origins of things and all this stuff. And I think one critique is that the companion missions don't tie in to the main quest line, but they do in non-spoilery ways, where they lead into these big reveals about the state of the world, and knowing those things really informs sort of the central conflicts and how you got to this point. So I do think ultimately it does all feed into each other, even if there's like a lot of meandering around to get there. So in terms of story structure, it may take a while to get where it's going, but I do think it does a good job of introducing you to the world and the lore, even if you're not super familiar. And like the thing about the game being 10 years old is like they are trying to onboard new people. It can't just be like, you know, a 30-year-old, whatever. Like they are trying to get a new audience here. And I definitely think it has been more, you know, mainstreamed, like the straight, essentially action gameplay. One thing I totally agree with Ralph on is they sanded this down way too much in terms of tone and character conflicts, and it's just too happy-go-lucky. Like I understand, like I want to bond with my teammate. I want to have good moments with my teammates, but I want to have bad moments. I want to have bad moments too, and I want to make the wrong choice. I want to like have something that has like horrible consequences. And like there's a couple big decisions where it's like you have to do this thing or this thing, and both of them are going to lead to bad things. Like okay, but generally speaking, again, the evil guy option is like you're kind of rude, or like you're maybe a little brusque, and I don't think that's interesting enough from a character perspective in a way that I'm okay with like changing the action and the structure and stuff, but that is something I miss from, if not all Dragon Age games, Mass Effect, Baldur's Gate. Like there are real choices and real conflicts you can get into in a way that they gloss over here in a way that I don't think was especially necessary. So if I could change one thing, it would be that. But otherwise, onboarding, I think that this will be a good jumping off point for people. And well, I am there is this narrative that like hardcore Dragon Age fans are going to hate this, and like all these newbie tourists are going to love it. And like it's not that simple. I think it will work for some and not work for others in both camps. And I just think that's too reductive. But for me personally, as someone who's been only lightly involved with the series, I was surprised at how much I liked it. This was not really even on my fall radar, and I'm like, I got a code, okay, fine. And then I was like, I genuinely want to play more of this. So here we are.
So I'm curious to know what you guys think about. So there's so much discourse about this game already. The reviews, most people like it, a couple of people don't. People are rallying like, ah.
Yeah.
How do you guys see the actual mainstream crowd response going? I mean, we have the critical response. We've talked about the Metacritic score and stuff like that. But how do you guys think the general public is going to respond? Do you think it's going to be as quote unquote divisive as some people are billing the conversation right now, whether it really is or not?
I do expect that it will be, to be perfectly honest, in the sense that I definitely looking at a lot of those reviews, I'm not sure that a lot of them really drill down into, I think, some of the game's more obvious shortcomings as they might have. You know what I mean? Obviously, not saying their reviews are incorrect, obviously, but just I do think that this game has some notable shortcomings and some very core foundational fundamental issues that you may get tripped up over, particularly like as we talked about tone. Like that's just one thing that I think is such a deal breaker for so many people. And even if the game was much stronger across the board, but it still messed that tone up, that's still something that you just can't get past, and you're like, you know what I mean? So I actually do think it's going to be I think there's going to be quite a spread of opinion, because maybe it's the lack of choice that gets you, maybe it's the tone that gets you, maybe it's the repetitiveness of combat that gets you. To be honest with you, all of those things got me at once, and that's why I think my review is so universally negative. But I do think there are a number of tripwires in this game that are going to result in that response, and coupled with the sort of expectations that people have of a BioWare game going into it, and I think how different this is versus those expectations, I definitely expect there's going to be a much broader range of opinion than I think is reflected in the current crop of review scores. I would say, I would put it that way.
So personally, I want to dig into that. So what do you think the disconnect really is? Is it just the fact that it's one opinion in a review versus a sea of, say, then 100 consumers playing it and rating it on their own? Like why would so many like consumers or like players, whatever, pick up on the tone things and be miffed by the tone, where like a bunch of critical scores didn't mind it?
I really don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I really don't. I just sort of like know in my gut though that there's going to be more a spread of opinion. And I know some of that's going to be
it's already happening.
It's already happening.
No one has played it,
but people haven't played it yet, and that's just how it goes with online discourse.
Yeah.
Sure, but I do think, and it's not like it's not a phenomenon that we're completely unfamiliar with, right?
No.
Again, if you look at the reception to Starfield, for example, where there's obviously a huge gap between where a lot of those critic scores were and where the game landed, and I think Final Fantasy 16 is another example where obviously lots of people love Final Fantasy 16, but certainly lots of people don't as well. And I think as well that wasn't quite borne out in the spread of scores. You know, I think part of it is also is sometimes to do with these big legacy franchises and these studios I think Nintendo gets a little bit of a bump when it scores. You know what I mean? Like there's like that Nintendo phenomenon that we notice.
Not really. I bought that alarm clock and it sucks ass. I hate it.
Oh my god.
Does it really suck ass?
No Nintendo bump for that. We'll save
I want to
that
hear
for
about
another-
that.
Yeah,
I want to
I
hear more
wanna
about that. But it is. You're right. It's an interesting thing. I can't quantify it. I can't say why it is. But I do think that it's a thing that happens sometimes, and I think it's gonna happen a little bit here. That's my gut. I don't know if anyone thinks I'm totally off the mark on that.
I mean, here's what I think is going to happen. I think that it is going to be divisive, and I think you're going to have extremes on both sides. Similar to what it's already happening, you'll have Dragon Age people who are just happy to see the series back in any form, and they'll love it. You'll have traditionalists who don't like it. You'll have people yelling about unrelated things. It will be divisive. But I think the ultimate result here is going to be like not amazing for BioWare, because I think it's all just sort of like it's going to muddle together. I don't think this is evidence of BioWare is dead and buried and like this is the nail in the coffin and like clearly they can't recover. Like I think it's overall good enough to not say that, but it's certainly not good enough to be like BioWare's back. Like, oh my god, Mass Effect's going to be so amazing. Like
That's true.
So it's just sort of in the middle, and I do wonder what that means for sales. Like someone like me who wasn't going to get it and like I really only played because I got a code, is it just being like pretty good, maybe going to be enough to get someone into a fourth Dragon Age after all this time. So I think it's mostly going to be these polar opposite views, but ultimately they're going to sort of average out into something that's not especially, memorable, I would say, in the longer term. Like I've seen some people be like, this isn't the game of the year conversation. Like I don't think it's going to be. I
saw some person say this is the best game BioWare's ever made. I'm like, this is a studio that made Baldur's Gate 2.
There will be people like that.
Like, oh man.
But in like looking at the long arc of this as like a journalist or whatever who covers the industry, it doesn't feel like something that's going to be kind of impactful over the long run. Like we're gonna be talking about Baldur's for years and years, but this, it's like they did a pretty good job coming back, and like some people didn't like the direction, but like next year I don't think we'll be talking about it. So whether it sells enough to please EA and BioWare, whatever, but in terms of the reaction, even if it's split, I don't ultimately think it's gonna matter either way.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I don't know. As a long-term BioWare fan, I wish this had come out of the gate and it was the game that people had been theory crafting for 10 years that it could be. I'm interested to see how the hardcore Dragon Age fans like accept it and see and go through it and pick it apart for lore things and story stuff. And I think it will find an audience for sure. There's stuff in there that I think people will really gravitate towards. But it also, not to sound really depressing, but like it feels like those kind of releases, end like mid to end 360 cycle, we just don't have that anymore. Like in general, in game development, like we've talked to death about how things have changed and how games are too expensive and take too long to make. And I think honestly, anything at this point, if you're waiting 10 years for anything, it's never going to be what you want it to be.
Oh man, that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying not to depress it, but it's like that's the thing where it's like there are things about this game that I do not like, and I think detract from the overall experience. But there are things that really compel me and make me want to go through it and see it through that I am really enjoying. So it's just such a weird mixed bag. And
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's up to Dragon Age fans. It's really to see how the Dragon Age freaks really respond to this, because some of them are very intense. Inquisition people are a whole different breed. So I'm curious to see how it goes down with them.
No. Yeah,
but
sure.
I think that's a nice positive note to end on. Thank you guys for I was gonna say thank you guys for coming. You guys just live here.
We're here all the time,
this is
man.
my house.
You're welcome.
Paul,
That's
thank you for being here and
Thanks
chatting
for
with us.
having
We'd
me.
love to have you on again.
Definitely.
Love your work. So we'll see you again soon.
Sounds good.
All right, folks, have you heard about Raycon, the sponsor of this podcast? Oh, you got a fresh pair in the
Oh.
box.
I got a
Look at you.
fresh. I got an unopened man right here. I do have my. I actually have
handbag.
because they sent me another one, so I do have another one already opened that I use.
What color is that? Is it the black ones?
This is the black one, but the one I have actually has like one of those yellow skins on it. So yeah, because you can actually buy skins for the cases.
Yeah, I got one here. A little protective.
I got it in yellow because it's. Did you just sniff it,
Oh,
Lucy?
I almost dropped it. So that was me trying
All right,
to...
okay, right. And yeah, the yellow's good because I leave it lying around the house and I don't lose it, so it's fine.
That's
So
fine.
for those of you out of the loop, these are the wireless earbuds that we've been recommending for quite some time now because they are affordable. They come in at about half the price of other premium wireless audio brands, but they sound just as good. They have all the features you want. They pair up nice and easy with Bluetooth, and they're recently revised. This is the newest version. Am I correct?
It is, that's right. It actually has multi-device connect now, so you can connect into like your phone and your iPad at the same time. It has better battery life. It has a faster charge as well, like both in the wall and also in the little charge unit thing. It'll like, I don't exactly remember the number, but like it's fast. And so you can get some proper juice to keep listening if you happen to run out. It has active noise cancelling. That's actually the biggest difference between this one and the other one.
Yeah, it's nice.
And that is a feature that you usually have to pay a lot more for from like, other headphones, other earbuds. But yeah, it has it. It works great. As I've said multiple times, they stay in my ear because other earbuds, not naming any specifics, but there is a certain type of very popular earbud that just does not fit in my ear.
Yeah.
But these do, and it's really good for that reason. I have owned multiple pairs, and I kind of keep one like in my gym bag, and I keep one at home and whatever, just so I like always have a pair. And because they're not expensive, it's like possible to do that. Versus, if they were like $400 a pop, it's kind of like that's a bit much,
Yeah.
So yeah, I've always really liked them. I recommend them. Yeah, that's
Same.
I think that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah,
covered it all.
yeah.
It's a very
think we did.
easy thing to talk about because
It is very easy to talk
they're
about.
just dependable, and also because it is getting to that time of year, they do make for
It
great
is.
gifts.
Oh,
They do.
great stocking
yeah.
stuffer.
My dad was
For
like,
sure.
"Oh, these are fun. Dude, I love these headphones. These are great." I'm like, "Yeah, love me now, please."
So if you do want to grab a pair for yourself or someone else, you can go to buyraycon.com/friends. And if you follow that link, you'll get up to, or at least 15% off your purchase. That's buyraycon.com/friends for at least 15% off. Thank you very much to Raycon for sponsoring the video.
All right, and we're back with a user question. Of course, you can submit questions to contact@friendspersecond.com.
And also to the
As of-
Substack.
Yes, the Substack you can sign up for. It's really great. It'll fill you in on the games we mention every week if you missed anything. So be sure to check that out as well. But this question comes from Jake Strassener, who says, "Greetings, friends. Thanks for making the best gaming podcast available." Thank you. That's very
That's
kind
very
of you.
nice of you. Thank you.
My question is, what game series would you like to see receive a spin-off from a wildly different developer? Something like Metal Gear Rising or Tales from the Borderlands. Damn, that's a good question.
That's such a good question.
Really good question. Tales from the Borderlands, by the way, S tier. Absolutely S tier.
I've heard that.
I've also
It's
heard
so funny. It is so well written. It's just like so surprisingly fantastic. If anyone hasn't played from Tales from Borderlands, because you think it's going to be like the Borderlands humor, which is dumb, but it's actually like good. Like it's really, really super snappy and like on point jokes. It's almost 30 Rock-esque at times in terms of like how it's done. So anyway, if you haven't checked out Tales from Borderlands, I didn't play the sequel. Didn't hear as many good things about that. I haven't played it myself. But yes, please go and play it. It's very good. Yeah.
My first thing that came to my mind, it was just like a dumb quick fire, is let a Capcom studio make a Final Fantasy game. I don't know what that means, but just something in my heart makes it feel interesting.
Like which, well, we talking like Devil May Cry? We talking like Monster Hunter? We talking Dragon's Dogma? Like
Yeah, which flavor
what
of
is
Capcom?
this?
I
Street
feel
Fighter,
like-
like fighting game.
Well, because the combat designer for DMC went and did Final Fantasy 16,
Yeah.
right? So
So
Yeah.
I'm feeling something like a Street Fighter type thing, or a Monster Hunter. Why not? Like, yeah, there was a thing with
Monster Hunter
Final
would
Fantasy
definitely
characters where they all fought each other, right?
Oh, Dissidia.
There was
Yeah.
I
Dissidia.
forgot about
Yes,
that.
that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
do that again,
I did
but
not
better.
like that.
Yeah, do that.
I
but
did not
good.
like. I played that like for like 15 minutes. I'm like, none of this is working for me. I'm just not interested. That kind of like brawler where you're floating above, where there's just you're floating in the sky and you're just zooming at each other. That does not do anything for me. I'm not into that at all. So,
I've forgotten every game and every game developer ever made. So, come back to me.
I would love to see the Xenoblade franchise make some moves into other genres. Because the Xenoblade games are fucking cool, but the problem is they're big JRPGs. They're like 100 hours or whatever, and a lot of people just find that very scary. And so I would love it if they were to do like tight 15-hour action games or some shit, or even like a tactic style game. And the reason I'm thinking about this is because they just announced that Xenoblade Chronicles X is getting re-released on the Switch. And I fucking yelled when I heard that news because I love that game, right? And I was thinking, like, imagine like a tactics game with the Xenoblade in the Xenoblade universe, like a tile-based tactics kind of thing. Like, I think that would be cool. Just something else that gets people into Xenoblade without them having to invest that amount of time, because so many people are just too scared off by it, which I 100% get. But it's such a cool universe, and the music rules, and I think a lot of people would really love it. So yeah.
What about my pitch? A Papers, Please, but you work at the Citadel in Mass Effect.
Oh shit, that's cool.
The aliens, yeah, for sure.
And then what about like you have to see if you can identify Cerberus agents or the Shadow Brokers agents, or hey, why is Commander Shepard and the team coming in and leaving and then coming back because
going all the time.
Coming back all the time.
Totally right. Yeah, I agree with this. I think this is. I think we should call Lucas Pope right now.
Yeah,
you got his email. Get him in.
We do have his email, so I think we can actually make this happen 100%.
It's not wildly different as a spinoff, but I would love to see, like, imagine a single player Destiny campaign by Respawn. I don't know. I would play that.
That would be pretty sick.
I feel like they'd be able to do a really good job on that.
I think they would be able to do a really good job of that too. However, I do think Bungie did some great single player campaigns. They've done some like Taken King and
I thought you were going to say Halo Reach.
No. They did some good stuff with Destiny, but I think you're right. I think that spin of just making a purely single player game, that would be really interesting. I would play that. I'd play the shit out of that, actually.
So I actually want to ask you guys, the thing in my brain, it was like IO Interactive, do something. What could you guys picture a franchise that could be applied to the Hitman formula pretty well, or like something like that?
Oh,
there is so much physical comedy in both Hitman and Yakuza.
That would roll.
I know they're busy with fucking James Bond or some shit, but
yeah.
Some kind of like joke, like a more jokey spin on the Hitman formula, like it's just more lighthearted. Like, yeah, that would actually roll.
Like you work as one of the girls in the cabaret club, and you have to try and poison like a mock or something.
Yep. I think that's a sick idea.
All right,
20%, 30%.
I was gonna say, what's your points on that?
We're giving away money here. All right, next up, we should roll into our conversation with Ryan Payton. He is the founder and studio head of Camouflage, the folks behind the recently released Batman Arkham Shadow. I played through it. I really, really enjoyed this game, so I was really excited to talk to Ryan. So we are going to roll that now. Also, Ryan did have some video issues, so you won't see him talking if you're watching the video version, but the audio sounds good. So we're just going to put something up. He's a very handsome guy, though. I can confirm. That's all good. But for now, let's roll that conversation. Ryan, thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
How's the team feeling? We're like a week or so out from launch?
Yes. Well, yeah, a little over a week from our unexpected launch, which I'm assuming we're going to maybe touch on. But you'd expect the team to be exhausted and all on vacation as they deserve to be. But we're pretty energized by the response, and we've already released like one update to the game. We're prepping another update that's coming out later this week. So yeah, we're just really happy with the response, and we just want to keep working on the game.
That's good. I definitely want to talk more about Arkham Shadow in a bit, but part of the reason why we wanted to have you on is because you're an old head. You've been at this for a long time.
I'm getting old.
Probably need to word that. No, that's not a very nice way to
not
put
weird.
it.
No, old head is like a term of endearment. That's good.
I know,
Oh,
I
thank
know.
Yeah, so I mean, you were a journalist, and then you went to the game side. Is that correct? Like you were, I believe, assistant producer for Metal Gear Solid 4. That's how I first knew of you.
That's how most people know of me, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I feel like I've really been busy. And I've done some cool things since 2008, but most people know me from working on Metal Gear Solid 4 and the podcast that I ran.
Yeah,
and so it's funny, yeah. When I reemerge every 3 or 4 years to ship a new game, it's funny. The internet usually comes back and says, "Oh yeah, I remember that guy from Metal Gear."
So I mean, I gotta ask. Like, I'm sure you get it a lot, but like, what was it like working on a Metal Gear game, working with Kojima and those teams?
It was a dream come true, and I know that's kind of a cliche thing to say, but rewind to what was I, 24 years old. I was a freelance writer for the magazines and eventually the websites I kind of grew up consuming, like Electronic Gaming Monthly, Wired, OneUp.com. I started writing for the Japan Times because I was living in Japan at the time when I was a freelance journalist, and then I interviewed Hideo Kojima for an article about Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence at E3. And after it, he realized that I could speak Japanese because I was picking up on what he was saying to his interpreter. And he, on the spot, asked me to come into the office in a few weeks to interview for a job. And
What the fuck, man?
Just played Metal Gear Solid 3 and declared it to myself and anybody who cared that it was my favorite video game of all time. So now I'm talking to the director of a director's cut of my favorite video game of all time, and he offers me not a job, but an interview opportunity on the spot. So yeah, it feels like I've lived a very smitten life from that point forward, and obviously before that too, to be really lucky to be able to be in that position.
I am going to learn Japanese right now.
Let's go.
And when we eventually interview Kojima, I'm going to be like listening in. And even if I catch one word, I'll be like, I know what he said. And then who knows what might happen after that.
You
Yeah.
never know what's going to happen. Yeah.
That's it, man. That's so wild.
And that word will be arigato or something.
Yeah, it definitely will. It definitely
I know
will.
that one.
It must feel like is it a totally different time these days? Like that seems like an impossible story of like, surely it can't be that easy to get jobs in the game industry these days. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, I mean,
Definitely
we know
not
that.
these
Like,
days. Are you
I mean,
joking?
yeah, that's a totally different time. Like, do you think the industry has shifted? Was it a bit more cowboy back then? A bit more sort of like, wheeling, like freewheeling in the way that it all went down?
I honestly, I don't think so. I think I feel this persistent sense of imposter syndrome because I didn't go to school to be, well, I did attempt actually to go to school to be a programmer. I went to college for computer science and failed miserably. And I never, at the time, I didn't have exposure to a lot of the tools that people have now. I couldn't teach myself Unreal or Unity with YouTube, or I didn't have that opportunity because it was obviously pre those technologies. But I knew I wanted to get in the games industry, and I feel like I kind of took a back door into it. I think that one of the secrets of finding a great job is to not stand in line with all the other presumably more talented people and the more accomplished people in all the lines that they're standing, and try to find a different route in there. And I think I was able to with my Japanese ability, with my writing ability, and just my obsession with just hard work and games. And I think that set me up. And so if I was in the shoes of somebody who wanted to get in the games industry and they wanted to kind of take a different route than everybody else, I'd probably suggest, maybe you study Chinese and then and go live in China for a while and connect with these Chinese game companies that are looking for. It's similar to, like, I think you could do it in Japan as well or other countries as well, but I think there's a lot of opportunity to do something like that. I mean, I'm not saying the only route is through learning Chinese or something, but that's an example, I think, of
Sure.
of how you can kind of break the system. And I think for a guy like me who is my favorite professor in college told me I was his favorite B- student. For a guy like me that's not top of the class, who's like the definition of average, I think you kind of have to be creative in order to land a great job like I was able to.
I promise we will get to Arkham Shadow, but obviously getting the job, getting the interview with Kojima is an incredible story in and of itself. But what were your highlights about working there? It seems like, especially like, not to out Jake, Jake is a huge Metal Gear fan, as is Ralph.
Sure.
I'm relatively new to it.
This is
but
the
it's-
only non-Metal Gear t-shirt that he owns.
Yeah.
So this is big that he's...
Seriously.
you know.
Although I saw a Tony Hawk shirt the other day. But
That's true. That's true.
I mean, what was it like to work there day to day? What kind of... Because, I mean, for me, like, it seems to be this incredibly glamorous studio, but that's obviously not the reality of game development at all. I guess not really hobnobbing with as many celebrities back then, but...
still, I mean, I met
like?
my fair share of celebrities even back in 2006, 2007, 2008. And yeah, it felt like a highlight reel of these really massive peaks of in a lot of ways, the glamour of game development. At least from my perspective, right? You've got the ones that I think most people would agree with, which is the midnight launches where you've got hundreds of people standing in line wanting autographs from not only from Hideo, but even like losers like me or more accomplished people like our cast and things like that. Or the E3 shows or Gamescom or a Tokyo Game Show where we had top billing at the Sony show. And they kind of would roll out the red carpet and we're showing up with our burnt DVD that's got the new trailer on it, and you almost like, not even an exaggeration, we almost had to handcuff it to a suitcase because it was that important to everybody involved. I would hand carry builds of the game to the factory because that's how much leeway we had with Sony to submit things at the last second because they trusted us and they wanted this game to be as good as possible. And I could rattle example after like just what it was like to be at a top tier AAA studio that knew it was good and was expected to be good. And then there's the other things I found glamorous that maybe other people wouldn't, such as like I'm just a chronic worker and I love working on games. I love working with the team. And so it was the best place to be because it'd be Friday night and I don't want to go out for beers with my friend. I want to work on Metal Gear with this crew, and they wanted to as well, to the extent that when I was working on the podcast, I remember I would record with Mark McDonald. I have to go edit the darn thing. And it's, I don't know, technically 1 a.m. on a Saturday morning, and I walk into the sound booth and there's sleeping bags, and I turn on the lights and these guys are sleeping because they just want to work on the game even more. And it wasn't forced crunch, it wasn't required. You just had a very passionate group, and I think it comes out in that studio's title. So again, I'm not advocating crunch. I'm not advocating the type of lifestyle that I've chosen to live, or maybe some of these other folks chose to live. But for those who enjoy that, and maybe you remember like working on a project together with your friends or your colleagues, and it was just fun to like get obsessed with something, it was the best place for that.
Sure. That's awesome. Yeah,
Well,
right.
like a lot of hard work is required for founding a studio and starting from the beginning after that, like almost to square one. I remember Republic was, I believe it was an early Kickstarter game. Am I correct? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So you go from there, and then now we're fast forward, we're talking about a few years ago, Iron Man VR, and now Arkham Shadow. How did Arkham Shadow come to be? What was the early process? Like, did they come to you or did you pitch? How does that happen?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out a way to condense 13 years in a hopefully not too long of an answer. But yeah, when we started Camouflage in 2011 with Republic, with the Kickstarter, where I had already spent through all of the money that I had made at Microsoft. I had liquidated all of my stock that I was handed at Microsoft as creative director on Halo 4. And when I was fired, I had such a chip on my shoulder. And I thought I knew everything about game development, and these guys didn't. And I'm going to prove them wrong with Republic. And it was a good lesson in terms of like, I didn't know anything. And it was grinding it out in a decommissioned bank building that was just this disgusting hub where I was able to find some great people to work with and cobble together that game, and that we're really proud of. But it wasn't the game that I thought it would be, or wouldn't be. It wasn't as good as some of these AAA titles that I thought I could create, but it was mine and my team's education to what it really takes to make a video game. We had something on store shelves that we can prove that we can make a real thing. And that made it easier to get the Iron Man project with Sony. And then right as we were wrapping up the development of Iron Man VR with our partners at Sony for PlayStation VR, I got a phone call from our other friends over at Meta, or at the time Facebook, and Oculus Studios. And they asked me if Camouflage is interested in continuing this path with VR. because we had already brought Republic to VR with Meta, and then we did Iron Man with Sony, and they asked me, like, would you want to do something even bigger than Iron Man? And I think most people would just expect me to say absolutely yes, let's go. But I felt like I was at a crossroads for my career and also the studio, because then we're really committed to this VR thing. And I actually, I don't know if I've talked about this publicly, but around that time, it was just right before COVID hit, I actually had Phil Spencer and Pete Parsons, the CEO of Bungie, at our office checking out Iron Man. And they pulled it off, the headset off. They were very complimentary of it. And they said, what's next? And I said, as a matter of fact, I got this opportunity with Meta, but I don't know if I'm going to jump headfirst into I want to go that deep into VR. And they just, both of me, like, they just looked at me like I was crazy. And they said, we just played Iron Man. You guys have been in VR for longer than almost every other studio. You pivot to flat screen. You're in this red ocean with countless other studios. And now you're going to try to compete in that space where you haven't shipped a flat screen game basically ever, except maybe with Republic on mobile. Or you can jump in this blue ocean. You guys could be the kings, the masters of VR. And I thought, yeah, these guys are smart, and that's why they're in this position. So I called up Meta and I said, let's do it.
Wow. So they both said that was like a unified front from both of them. They both said, you got to do this.
I felt like I was getting kind of ganged up on a little bit, actually.
It's really fascinating, because I think that would have been at a time when, I mean, I feel like the overall trajectory of VR it's moved since that time. And I think back then we were kind of looking at this fledgling period where we had like Half-Life Alyx coming out, and obviously Iron Man VR, and the technology was hitting this, it's really getting some momentum behind it. And I wonder how you feel as though the overall trajectory of that VR space has changed since that decision, and how you feel about that decision in retrospect.
Yeah, at the time in 2020, I feel like VR was in a pretty good place with Iron Man, and also with Half-Life Alyx, as you mentioned, also came out in 2020. And then I think that what the market told us about those titles, and a handful of others, such as like Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, it also came out in 2020.
Yeah, sure.
That people wanted more than just demos and quote unquote experiences, that they wanted more, to quote Jake in his review of Arkham Shadow, I think you said a full ass video game.
Sounds like Jake, all right. Sounds like Jake.
And that's not what exactly the words that Meta used to describe the project when they called me and said, do you want to do a full ass video game? But I think that was the intent. It was, hey, it's going to take time. It's going to take 3 or 4 years, not only with Camouflage, but with these other studios. And I would eventually find out what they meant, which was Asgard's Wrath 2 with Sinzara, which launched last year. Really huge video game, big investment. And then you've got Assassin's Creed Nexus from last year, another big investment, another big title for VR. And there's obviously lots of exciting stuff on the horizon that we haven't announced yet. So for me, the software is starting to really get there, and the response that we're seeing to Batman Arkham Shadow, I think is an indication that people are really happy to get these much more fuller experiences from seasoned VR developers that know what they're doing. And you can really lean into the technology and push the hardware. And that's the other side of the coin, I think, which is the hardware. The technology has gotten so much better, even since 2020. I think the Meta Quest 3 and the Meta Quest 3S are just amazing pieces of hardware that are affordable price. The haptics, the lenses, the spatial audio that we're using, and then just the raw power of the device. I don't even know if I could imagine how good the game would have looked in 2024 if I had just imagined what a standalone VR game would look in 2020. So the technology is actually moving very, very quickly. And to me, as a developer, very exciting.
That was really the thing with me, was seeing the trailer for it and seeing Arkham Shadow gameplay and being like, no way. Like the maneuverability and like the amount of things you can do as a character. I was like, how are they going to do this? And then after playing it, I'm like, wow, they nailed it. So like one of the big things I wanted to ask you is like doing all the Batman things in the game and like pulling off all the Arkham style things is so impressive with how it felt natural, and it, like exactly like, oh, well, you swish the cape to stun people and you just do it, and it just works. So what I wanted to know is, of all those main elements, like those core elements, what was the hardest to really nail the feel of, like really get it working in VR?
Well, I could tell you the one that scared us, the element that scared us the most, which was the combat. And that is what almost scared me away from the project. And apologies to your viewers or your listeners who have already heard the story, but when I got the phone call about let's do a big VR game together with Meta, with Oculus Studios, we didn't know at the time what game we were going to work on. It was just this idea that, hey, we're going to work with Ideate. We're going to ideate with them. We're going to pitch different projects to different publishers and IP holders. And after a few early explorations, we landed on. They called me and said, hey, we think we could convince Warner Brothers to license the Arkham franchise to allow us to build an official new entry into the Arkham franchise, exclusive for the MetaQuest 3. What do you think? And when I got the phone call, despite being a massive Batman fan, and I so respect what the Rocksteady team and Warner Brothers Montreal did with the previous Arkham titles, I was very hesitant. Namely because I didn't think that we could translate the classic free flow combat from the Arkham franchise into VR faithfully, or in a way that added anything new or exciting. It just terrified me, quite frankly, which is strange because if you get to know me, I'm very optimistic, almost to a fault. So when I hung up the phone and said, well, think about it, I walked over to our design pit, and one of our design directors, Ryan Darcy, was there. I told him about the phone call. I told him what I was worried about, and he said, Payton, what are you concerned about? Like, of course we could do it. We just shipped Iron Man, where people told us you can't fly around at that speed, shoot, rocket punch, ground pound like Iron Man without it being an uncomfortable experience, and we proved you could do that. Why can't we do that with Arkham? And I said, well, what are you going to do, Ryan Darcy? Left stick, like Batman's just going to like walk up to an enemy and start just flaying your arms at the enemy. It's not going to feel like Arkham. He said, Ryan, Batman doesn't walk across the room in the Arkham games. He punches across the room. And we're going to take the rocket punch mechanic that we had from Iron Man. That's going to initiate the punch. And then we're going to borrow the rhythm-based elements from Beat Saber. So it's not frantic. You can just punch whenever you want. Just like the Arkham titles, you have to do it in a rhythm. And then we're going to borrow some time dilation from Super Hot VR, throw it all into a pot, mix it up, and you've got yourself a stew, or Arkham Shadow, as we end up calling it. And that was the biggest, most challenging thing, I think, out of the gate. And so it was that plus locomotion. We created 2 prototypes. We brought them to Warner Brothers along with my story pitch that I worked on with our writers at Camouflage. And obviously it went well because we ended up signing the game, and now the game's out there. But yeah, it was, I think, a very compelling pitch, and it was all leaning into the core strengths of Camouflage. Because I think that we've been working in VR for 8 years now, and we know what works, we know what doesn't. For the most part, we're still experimenting. There's still room to grow. But in the world of VR veterans, I think we're definitely among that group.
Yeah.
What was it like working with?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Lisa. I was going to say on the combat, because I actually played it at Gamescom. I did like a full preview build there and whatever else. I haven't had a chance yet to play the full final build because I've been working on a whole bunch of other stuff, but very keen to get to it. But the combat, I was so blown away by how natural it felt. Like as soon as you understood what that was, you're like, well, yeah, this is exactly how this should work. And it felt fantastic. You know what I mean? And you just absolutely get into a flow. And it really was, I think, a brilliant translation of that combat we'd played for years on the flat screen into this VR format. So yeah, like honestly, congratulations to the team on that, because I really, really love that.
No, I think it surprised us to a degree how well it's worked, and seeing the public's response has been incredibly encouraging. So thank you for that.
I think the thing for me as someone who is a long-term, actually one of the things I really enjoyed is when I also did the demo at Gamescom, and when you said, what is your familiarity with the Batman Arkham games, and I was like, extremely familiar. One of the things I really enjoyed when I put the headset on is the sound work, because for me that is like the sensory thing that immediately got me into it. I wanted to know about the experience of, obviously, Rocksteady. A lot of the key creatives have gone, like Sefton Hill. They've obviously been very busy on Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. What was the collaboration process like with them after pitching and after signing?
The collaboration with us and the IP holder was mainly actually through Warner Brothers Interactive and DC. Then they would interact with Rocksteady primarily on our behalf, in part because they really didn't want to distract Rocksteady from all the core work they were doing on Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, and I also think that they also wanted to give some space to us to feel like we could just lean into what we wanted to do, and which was both an authentic homage to the Arkham franchise. It's a love letter to the Arkham franchise in a lot of ways, but also because I think they wanted us to do something different and lean into the core strengths of camouflage, which I really appreciated. And that sounds like lip service, especially when you get to know these folks over at Warner Brothers and DC. They're like, yo, we really want you to do what you're excited about. We're here to support you. Yeah, I know. But in 2.5 years from now, I'm going to say, I want you to play as a different character in this game, or I want to have Bruce Wayne sit down in a group therapy session with the ventriloquist, and Harley Quinn, and Dr. Crane, and you guys are going to tell me, no, you can't do that because of whatever IP reason. But they really stayed true to the word, and I can't say enough good things about our partners at Warner Brothers and DC. Just so supportive, and they were problem solvers rather than problem makers. And they just really encouraged us to make the game that we were really passionate about, which I think is the way you approach it if I was in their shoes.
To keep that feel consistent, to make it feel like it exists in the world of an Arkham City or an Arkham Origins, how does that work from a production or leadership standpoint? Like, how do you set that stuff in place? Is like everybody has to have muscles and it always has to be raining. Like there has to be more of that, right, from the top level. How do you guys do that?
Well, one, we had what we called Arkham Book Club, which was this required activity on the part of the team that at certain seasons throughout development, they were required by or they would get a poor review in their annual review to spend time in their work hours to play through all of the Arkham games and then participate in various discussions with and amongst the team, in which they were asked in a Miro board to list up all the things that they thought were relevant and that we should borrow and pull into Arkham Shadow, and then the other stuff that we felt like is okay to just kind of let be. And I thought that was a really great education. It really empowered the team to do things that still I'm surprised when I play the game. And I just happened to be the other day where our artist Zani here in the Japan office was commenting that she found this prop in the game that I didn't even know existed, and it was somebody just inspired on the team that put that in there, that just infused the game with even more of that kind of authentic Arkham that wasn't top down. However, we did get very top down, specifically from me, because early on, I'm not going to say the entire team at Camouflage, but there were pockets of the team that early on didn't, I think, appreciate how passionate and how, I guess passion is probably the right word, that the Arkham community still is 8 years on from the most recent big release, like Arkham Knight.
Sure.
And that how detailed they are and what level of expectations they have for a new Arkham game. And so early on, especially, it was an uphill battle for me, where I'm going through this deep education of Arkham. I'm watching every single YouTube video from these amazing Arkham YouTubers and influencers who are still very active right now. The top 30 details you missed from Arkham Origins' first 30 seconds of the game. Just massive details where I'm just writing down, not even exaggeration, hundreds of pages of notes. And then sending that to the team who's working on certain elements of the game and saying, please make sure you insert this. Please make sure you insert this. Please do this. Please, here's a screenshot from here. And it was really exhausting to them. And they didn't really, again, some people on the team, and I think understandably so, didn't quite understand the degree of which the Arkham community cares about that. And then when we announced the game on May 1st with our teaser trailer that got a very visceral reaction from the internet, both positive and very negative, because it wasn't the game that they were all hoping. And I understand that, because I want another flat screen Arkham game as well. But once they started to kind of settle down and look at the details that we put into that teaser trailer, they started to see, like, wait a second, these Camouflage folks are as obsessed with Arkham as we are. And even if it's not on the platform I was hoping it would be on, I'm kind of interested. And that started the dialogue from May 1st all the way to now through ship. And I think, I don't think I can speak for all the community members, but I think we've turned the hearts. We've shown people that we're with them, and we're just as passionate as we are. And here's our presentation. Here's our interpretation of what an Arkham sequel would be.
Were some of those big, without spoiling anything, were some of the big moments, some of the big twists, were they baked in with the initial pitch, or did that come along later? Was that the subject of debate? Because you take some big swings. I think you nailed them, but they are big swings.
Thank you. Somebody who'd came in and played the game early. We interviewed a handful of folks, and one of them said, "This game has a lot of confidence in it." and which I took that as the ultimate compliment, because we were so nervous working on this game. Like, are people going to like this? Are these setups that we're building going to pay off properly? But to answer your question, Jake, I think the one big twist I think you're referring to, that was part of the initial pitch and the ideation process. I thought, look, at Camouflage, one way you might have noticed the way that we differ in our storytelling than maybe the Arkham titles in particular is that we do tend to follow more of a traditional 3-act structure. I'm very much about the development of like your main character and trying to put them through something where they come out better on the opposite side of like the whole experience. And I honestly wanted to make a game where Bruce Wayne or Batman learns empathy. And we had a handful of characters that we could do that with. And then we kind of built that. Because I feel like, and sorry to get a little bit, I don't know, philosophical for a second, but you start pitching this game in 2020, you're looking around at the world and you think, okay, people are going to be playing this game as Bruce Wayne, as Batman in a MetaQuest 3 where you're fully immersed and you've become this character. What an amazing opportunity to craft a story where we challenge players like we were doing with our character to have a prejudice in our Act 1, have your world shaken, and then be forced to have to learn about this world or another person or people that you initially looked down upon. And I don't know whether it's up to the community and everybody to be the judge of whether we were successful or not, but I'm proud of the fact that we attempted to tell a story where we really forced the player and Bruce to come to terms with their prejudice and hopefully try to grow.
Sorry, that was really good. I'm just absorbing that one.
I was like, as Jake lagged out, I was like,
no, it was great.
That's why we called it Arkham Shadow, by the way.
Yeah,
it's the Jungian shadow, right?
I didn't really know that.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Right. Yeah. I didn't know that there was going to be such a focus on story on it. I really thought this would be quite a mechanically driven game, because I thought, okay, Batman, I can see, and because when I played the demo as well, the preview / I should say, it was very mechanically driven. It didn't really have any story beats in it from what I can recall. So I'm actually quite surprised to hear how deep it's going in that story side of things. And Jake as well, like your endorsements over what you've said with regards to like its big swings that it makes and its contributions to the Arkhamverse. So that's really cool. I'm really excited about that, actually. I wasn't really expecting that at all.
Well, one thing I wasn't really expecting, even though I probably should have anticipated it, was when we brought the game to Gamescom and Lucy got to play it, Ralph, you got to play it, and Jake, I'm sorry I wasn't able to get you into play. That's one of my deepest regrets from coming out of that show. But another deep regret I had was our demo didn't have any story in it. So we had people who took the headset off because we wanted to focus and demonstrate that, hey, we figured out the Arkham combat, the locomotion, you feel like Batman, check out the great visuals of the game and the great audio of the game. And countless people came out of the headset and they said, wow, that was really fun. That was really cool. Does this game have a story? And I'm thinking, oh, yeah. Yeah, it has a story. It has a lot of story. But yeah, that was one thing that, if I go back, we wouldn't have ended it as early as we did. And we would have had a cinematic moment.
Yeah.
So what's next? I know you guys are working on some fixes and some tweaks and stuff like that. But, in terms of updates, what can we expect? I know you guys have been talking about adding stuff. So what do you got cooking?
Well, we launched a day early, as Lucy knows, because we were talking about that offline. That was unexpected. The game prematurely launched while I was in the air from Japan to San Francisco to be with the team for launch. And so since then, it's just been a frantic push to support the game, to get the community's feedback. We've already updated the game once with version 1.01. We've got the full team dedicated to Arkham Shadow, not just for like the next few weeks before we go and start working on our next game. We are fully committed to developing this game, the single player game, for at least the next few months and likely into next year with just free content and updates. Yeah, the community's helped us find some bugs that we weren't expecting and anticipating in the retail unit. So we've been quickly fixing those. But we also have literally hundreds of quality of life improvements on our list of things that we're just knocking out on a day-to-day basis. We've got new content. We're going to be adding more challenge maps. Most likely we'll be adding New Game Plus, new difficulty mode, the character viewer, which is a staple from the Arkham franchise. Seeing all these characters in 3D, in VR is really, really cool. We're adding that. So yeah, it's just the whole team just cranking on the game that we just love. And I'm excited for people to to play, who are playing the game right now, but also who get to play the game a month or two from now, because as you probably know, the game is bundled and packed in with the Quest 3 and the Quest 3S. So we expect a lot of people around the holidays to jump in. And by then we'll be in version 1.2, 1.3, and it'll be an even smoother experience with even more content. So yeah, I feel very lucky as a developer to not have to worry, especially as I'm not an independent developer anymore. We were acquired by Meta 2 years ago. I don't have to worry about quickly shifting the team over to the next project to keep payroll going. Like it's just been amazing that Warner Brothers, DC, and Meta are just like, no, just keep working on the game, just make it great. Who gets to do that? You know.
Sure.
So you did say there is another game. Do you know what the game is already? Can you give us anything? Is it VR?
Sorry,
Is it not?
I meant more like conceptually. Like we're not moving on to our next game because one, we don't know what it is. We're just fully onto this title, and I'm trying to be as transparent as I can with the public. Is that a lot of this depends on how good Arkham Shadow does, and I would have to imagine that if the game does really well, and so far the reception's been very strong, but if it continues to do well and is well received and people love the game, then yeah, I want to make it really hard for my lovely managers and bosses over at Meta and our partners at Warner Brothers and DC not to ask us to work on a sequel. That would be an absolute dream for us.
Cool. Awesome.
Well, I'm in, definitely. Okay.
I'm in too. Let's do it.
Signed.
We'll have to get you another t-shirt. We have to get you an Arkham Shadow t-shirt.
Yeah.
You were messing me up the other day when you had that black or gray shirt that you had on. It was
yeah,
so
sorry.
Sure
it's usually Metal Gear only. That's
Sleepy Hollow today though.
Yeah, it's that time of year, you know.
Yeah.
Sure, makes sense.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time. Good luck with continuing to update the game. Thank you for it, and we'll talk soon.
Well, thank you for all your interest in it, and for having me on your awesome show. I really appreciate all the things that you are all doing.
Thanks, man. See ya.
Bye.
Let's just jump.
And we're back. Let's just jump
right into it.
Okay. Right. We are here talking about the games that we have been playing this week. This is the big old segment. I don't want to start. Should I start? I don't.
Well, okay, I have to kind of start because I'm like, I really have not played anything other than Dragon Age. I'm still chipping away at Diablo, and I definitely don't want to talk anymore about Dragon Age because we've done it.
We just did it.
Yeah.
And we just did it again.
So Diablo, what are you chipping away at? I thought you had kind of finished the main crux of it.
Correct. I finished the campaign, but then you sort of get into the end game where there's like the rest of the season pass and there's the general sort of grind to gear up your character, whatever. But I really have only just played like a few hours. I have really nothing substantive to add on top of the campaign is not good, but the broader game still continues to be fun. You know, I think the only thing I would actually add is that I'm very bummed to hear that Path of Exile has just gotten a
3 weeks.
3-week delay. So I'm kind of bummed about that. You know what I realized that we haven't talked about though at the top of this block? We haven't talked about Concord. And the fact that that Firewalk just got shut down
today. Yeah.
Was this a surprise to you guys? No. We like hedging, but where was your money on this? Was your money on this happening or what?
They were gone.
You were gone.
I don't think they were doing anything. I think those developers have probably just been sat for the last 2 months waiting.
I think so too.
To get laid off.
I think so too.
I don't think there was any directive from Sony to fix it. When people were like, "Oh, there's stuff on Steam that's changing," and I was like, "I don't think that's anything."
I thought that was just residual leftover work as well. Like I just thought they're just doing little bits and pieces on like clearing out their Jira backlogs, you know. But it is a fucking bummer.
It sucks.
It is a bummer.
So are like the big execs who greenlighted this and stuff, are they like held accountable for this or?
But it's like this is the thing. What have you got here? You got a situation here where a bunch of executives tried to greenlight a new hero shooter made by a bunch of very experienced developers, okay? And bottom line, it is a good video game. And I think that gets lost in the noise within this conversation, right? This is a good video game.
Like gameplay-wise and stuff.
Gameplay-wise, absolutely. It's a good video game. It's not great, but it's good enough that it deserved to have a bit more time to like
find its feet, whatever else. The problem with this was the business model. And I firmly believe that if you had put this out as free to play, as in at the initial launch, if you'd built the game around that, I think this could have had a shot at just getting a foothold, like just a foothold. And you could potentially grow that foothold into something bigger. I'm not saying for sure it would have been huge, whatever. All I'm saying is I think it would have earned its foothold. And, you know, for Sony to have not gone down that route, insisted on this premium model, which is such a silly blunder that and the thing is, we warned them about it as well. We played this game. We told them, we're like, this is not going to work with this business model. Don't do this. And they still did it. And it's like, at that point, you should have listened, delayed the game by 6 months, retooled it, you know, pull back your marketing spend, redeploy it later on when the game's out, like reapproach it in terms of how you're building relationships with influencers and communities, whatever else. It's just like, no, they're like, no. And so it just feels very frustrating from that perspective, because obviously the executives decide that, and absolutely it'd be great if they were held accountable for that. But at the same time, I respect the fact that they did employ, you know, a whole bunch of people for a bunch of years. I do respect the fact they took a punt on some new IP, for sure. But the stupidity around that business model decision is just so silly, you know?
Yeah. And now, what is it, 167 devs are...
So 200.
The 200?
200 including, well, the other conversations around
there's another studio.
The mobile studio, correct.
Yeah.
So they're pulling up, or they're also closing another studio. It's like 30 jobs, and that studio was focused on mobile titles. It had one in the works, and I think one in like a pre-planning phase or whatever. And that title will now just never get released. So, you know, obviously Sony's just pulling up on their live service strategy. They went all in, and we sort of saw them doing that 2 years ago. I personally thought that was a incredibly stupid thing for them to do to that degree. It's like if they wanted to put a few irons in the fire, like fair enough. But just the amount of investment they were doing across the board, which just seems so excessive.
Well, I mean,
here we are.
In a similar vein, Netflix closed, was it Project Blue?
Yeah.
So Joseph Staten's AAA studio.
Again, I'm not saying I 100% saw that from the moment I saw that announcement. I'm like, there's no way that studio ships a game, because they're just going to get cold feet. Like, Netflix just don't understand how much it actually costs to make a game, how long it takes to make a game, the risks involved in making a game. Like,
Netflix's strategy. Have you seen their the Netflix, what do you call it? Not like work ethos, but like what it's like being at Netflix. They have a whole page, or they used to a few years ago, on their websites being like, oh yeah, if you get a job here, you know, we really push people, and if you're not the right fit, you're not the right fit, but you'll get an incredibly generous severance package. This is on their career website.
That's kind of a weird thing to advertise on your career website. That's not the kind of thing, like, if you get sacked from here, you'll get a good payout. It's like, okay,
and it's
fair enough.
You probably might, because we're like type A people all over, and if you're not performing, if we don't I don't know.
Yeah, performance and pushing, it takes them like 30 years to make anner season of Stranger Things. I forgot what happened last season. What are we doing?
They're all like geriatric now, all the kids, you know? I know what you mean.
Very, very weird. I don't know.
It is just a big bummer, though, to see how that's gone. I think everyone kind of saw that it was not going to happen with Concord. The amount of work to retool that game, relaunch it, push through the public perception around it, fix its core issues as well, because I don't want to imply that it was like good to go in a free-to-play model. There were some things you needed to fix with that game, but I think you could have fixed them. You know, I think you could have. So, it's a real shame. It's a real shame.
Well,
anyway,
on a positive note, weirdly enough, Black Ops 6 is pretty good.
I'm so excited to play it, unironically. I've heard so much good shit about it. I haven't heard a bad word about that campaign.
So I just tinker in the multiplayer. Like, I'm really just kind of like every year since Call of Duty 2, I really just love the campaigns. I love a ride. It's like a Michael Bay movie. You know what you're going to get. It's big, crazy, awesome. It's not super long. They're usually paced pretty briskly, and this is a good one. This is people are really saying it's like the best thing ever. I don't know about that. I think it's just because the last few years we've had a lot of downer campaigns between Modern Warfare 3s, which was kind of thrown together, and then Modern Warfare 2s, which just wasn't really as good as the first Modern Warfare, in my opinion.
World War II as well, with the different
Yeah,
campaigns
so
intersecting.
this one is a continuation of Cold War.
Right.
In a lot of ways, which that had good energy, and it had some real good like fun and espionage to it. So there's a lot more of that. You're hanging out with Robert Redford again. That's the guy. Like
Adler. No, but he looks exactly like Robert Redford.
He's literally Robert Redford. Yeah, like, and I think that's cool.
Really does.
Yeah.
I actually thought it was when I first played the game. I'm like, hey, they got him. Nice. You know.
Yeah. It's weird. It's zany. There's a whole mission where it's not spoiling anything, but like there's a whole mission where like you go to Washington DC and you go to a campaign event for Bill Clinton running for president, and like there are posters everywhere with like the Clinton campaign, and like you walk in and he just finished making his speech, and like you see him getting off the stage, and you have a camera and you're taking photos of people, like you're disguised as press, and then you need to, it's like Mission Impossible almost. You need to find a politician that has biometric access to a vault, and you need to scan their eyes with your camera. So you need a photograph of the politician. So you're like, how do I get a photograph of this politician? And the room presents you with different options.
Like a Hitman level?
Basically, yeah. Hitman level, or like Nintendo 64 Mission Impossible. Like it just feels
I was going to say, when you said going in with the camera, I was like 007 Nightfire.
Oh my God.
The chalet? Yeah.
Yep. So it gives you those little options, and like you can choose how to do that. And it's just a little different. It's a little fun. It's simple. It's not overly complicated, but for like wildly accessible, like made for mass audiences type of thing, for them to have some fun like that is cool. There's a level that's heavily inspired by Prey and Control.
Really?
Mostly from like a visual standpoint, but also kind of vibes that I just didn't expect. And like the developers are clearly like wearing that influence on their sleeve. They're like, fuck yeah, isn't this cool? Remember that game? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Nice.
Yeah, it's just fun. It's a good ride. It's like 8 hours or so. And,
okay, I thought it was shorter than that. So 8 hours, right? Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
It sort of felt like.
I started it yesterday. And Jake, you are missing out a key point with your mini review of it there. It's the use of 9 Inch Nails.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, like pretty early.
Is it really?
On.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like you get into a van with a colleague with a contact, and someone's blasting head like a hole.
They're playing head like a hole. Yeah. Yeah, the 90s thing is cool, but also like the stealth sections in this one, I actually really liked. The previous couple of games have thrown stealth missions, and I just didn't feel like the stealth really worked very good with Call of Duty. Like, I don't know, the detections were weird and inconsistent, and the enemy eye. This one works really good. I think it was like the scenarios and the levels, and it's like you infiltrating a villa and stuff like that. They just work fairly well.
I was talking about it with Max Scoville at the weekend, and he was really enjoying it, and he loved the fact that so I only played like an hour and 90 minutes of it yesterday, so I haven't really had time to explore kind of your safe house too much, but there's loads of puzzles. So you get given a black light, and there's someone scribbled codes and stuff on the walls, and you go, there's a piano, and I was like, if I have to crack a code and then put the code in on the piano and unlock a secret room because it's an ex-KGB base or something.
Yep.
I don't know. There's just like a lot of like cool little things that, as someone who has taken an extended break from Call of Duty, I'm stoked to see and play more.
Yeah, the characters are pretty memorable. You're kind of like a voiceless protagonist for most of it, but all the other characters, like Woods
is
from
back.
the Black Ops games, which I love that voice actor. Like he's got such a presence. It's very just simple, good, clean, dumb fun, and I mean that totally as like a compliment. It's there was one other element I wanted to. It's gonna spoil it, so I don't want to. But yeah, I recommend it if you're like me and you just kind of, especially on Game Pass now, right? You can just download it and just kind of play through the campaign. I think it's worth checking out.
Yeah.
It probably helps to kind of play Cold War
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't I just remember enjoying the overall vibes of Cold War, being
Yeah.
I don't remember any specifics.
Nah.
I just remember some cool vibes.
You know, you remember who Robert Redford is? Right?
I remember Robert Redford. That's it.
Yeah,
so
so-
and of course that's not even his name. So that's all character or actor or anything. It just
It's also
looks
got
like
some open sections too, which are actually pretty
I heard that.
pretty well done.
Yeah,
They've tried this
interesting.
before and it hasn't always worked out, but
Yeah.
this is pretty simple. It's like, you have like a mission where it's like you got to take out these 3 things. And it's like you can just go there and do it, or you can explore, find some ordnance, do some side quests. Like you'll go into a firefight and some guy will be like, "We're pinned down, we need your help," and you save them, and then they're like, "Here's a kill streak thing where you can call in airstrikes," and then you're like, "Okay, that makes that real
Sick.
encounter way easier." Stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
It also, and I don't know, I can't speak to like the sensitivities of stuff like this, but instead of totally doing just like the generic Middle East war-torn village thing that they've done 1,000 times, which sometimes is like stereotypical or like awkward, they go right for like Saddam Hussein mansions, like you're raiding his like palaces filled with gold, which I just thought like from a history perspective or like a recent history perspective was just interesting.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, a lot of weird zany stuff in this one. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm definitely. I feel like it'd be the perfect chaser after Dragon Age.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like 50 hours of like all of that, and then just to be able to go into a fucking stupid ass shooty game and like sit on a turret and mow down whatever, like that feels about right for this moment for me. Do you know? I need that right now.
Yeah. Dirt bike chase through snowy Washington D.C.
Oh,
where you're
hell
shooting,
yeah.
Hell yeah.
where you're on Robert Redford's dirt bike and you're shooting guys with a silenced pistol.
Love to see it. Love to see it.
Lucy, what have you been playing?
So I traveling a bit. I was at Comic-Con a couple weeks ago. Yes, just after we recorded last time. So a lot of my gaming has kind of been a little bit on the back burner. I have Fear the Spotlight and Red Dead PC that are going to be on the docket that I'm going to dig into
Nice.
this week. I'm so
Fear the
excited.
Spotlight's cool.
Oh yeah, I loved
Oh,
it.
you played that, did you?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Nice.
Yeah, I played it at Summer Game Fest and I really dug the vibes. But I am playing, I'm almost finished. I'm very sad that I'm almost finished. Wilmot Works It Out. So I actually don't know that much about Wilmot Works It Out. I never played Wilmot's Warehouse. I was at a demo of this at Gamescom. It's published by Finji. Basically, you play your little square, your little tile called Wilmot, and you have a subscription to a puzzle club. And so every so often, the postie comes, knocks on the door, gives you a puzzle. And then there are all these just tiles, basically, and you push them together or you grab them, and you just basically are solving puzzles. And that's the game. It's great. I'm having a wonderful time. It is a nice little... My cat is going bonkers and like ruining all my stuff. But it's just a nice little pleasant time. I'm just putting together jigsaw puzzles. It feels very nice. The music is very relaxing. Here's a little behind the scenes thing. If you were watching the Giant Bomb Astrobot Invitational, I was not on camera, but I was commentating. There's only so many times I can watch the boys speedrun the exact same level for 2 hours. So I was playing Wilmot Works It Out that entire time.
Nice. That's cool.
But no, it's just lovely, and it's just a really nice game to like. It just controls really nicely, and it provides a level of challenge because sometimes you'll get multiple puzzles at the same time, and so you kind of have to. It's like it's almost as if the boxes have got all mushed together into one, and you have to sort them out, and then you get to decorate the little house that you live in and put them up on gallery walls, and it's just very nice and pleasant. I'm having a very nice. I hate that. Like such a stupid.
Yeah.
It's a stupid word, but that's the best word I got for it. It's
But I've
it's
heard
just
exactly that.
nice.
I've heard that it's it's sort of like therapeutic.
Yes.
The repetition is part of it.
Yep.
The sounds, the relaxed soundscape, but that the puzzles sort of do kick up a notch towards the end and get a little bit more challenging, but not so much so that you really have to think about it too much.
I just
It's
think
just a
it's
nice
neat.
idea.
To
Yes,
quote
and I mean
Marge
that's enough
Simpson.
sometimes. Yes, I think it's neat.
I just think it's
no,
neat.
I think that's it, and it's I have heard very good things about it as well. So yeah, it did. When I heard about it, I was like, I think Lucy would like this one.
Yeah.
Is that a Steam
It did
Deck
come
And
to
you'd be
mind.
right. No,
So-
other than that, I'm just still getting through Dragon Age, getting through Metaphor. I am playing. I can't talk about that one, but no, it's it feels like a weird sort of end to the year. Like things are tapering off a bit, but I am actually very encouraged by the Indiana Jones previews.
Tell me, what's the word on that? I haven't checked them out yet.
Yeah,
That's
people
very
seem
good.
to be into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
People.
So like, what's the TLDR? Like, what kind of game is it? Uncharted, first person Uncharted, or what?
I saw a headline that said adventure action game, not action adventure game. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, I saw a lot of
Ooh, say
comparisons
less.
to bringing the humor of Indiana Jones
Okay.
by means of
Interesting.
sort of like Hitman, like ridiculous situations that you line up.
Oh.
And
okay.
so I'm interested to see how that all. I want to play it. Kurt from Gamespot, on my team, he kind of said it scratches the same sort of itch as Dishonored does, like kind of setting up.
Okay, that's really
situations
encouraging.
and- yeah, and so very encouraging. I'm excited to play that one.
Just picture Dishonored, but like the dumb slapstick movie version. Like,
Yeah.
how do I throw this frying pan at this Nazi?
yeah. Yeah, that's good news. I'm excited. I mean, like, I was never expecting that one to be like, as I said before, like a game of the year contender. It's not for that. It's just like a fun indie game. And I did have my doubts though about how playable it might be, because it's obviously very different territory for machine games. So to hear that it's good is very good. I'm very excited to hear that. That's great news.
We talked about it a little bit in the interview, but Arkham Shadow is really good. I really like it.
Yeah.
I know.
So have you actually finished it?
Yeah.
You
Oh,
finished
cool.
it
Wow. And
very
how long is it?
quickly.
I raw dogged that shit. It's like
You,
like I don't know, 10 hours.
That's-
Okay, that's long for a VR game.
I cannot be in VR for that long. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, Arkham Shadow, if you go on the Meta store, it's like for moderate tolerance. I think my tolerance is so shit that I'm playing it in very, very short bursts. But even while I am playing, I'm really enjoying because it's just
Well, that's the thing, man. It's like I know not everybody can play VR for accessibility reasons or financial reasons or the fact that it's just locked to Quest 3 and 3S, and I don't love that. I like native PC VR. I love plugging my headset into a nice kick-ass PC and seeing it all, and like I love how Half-Life Alyx was as an experience. But I think even with all those caveats and limitations, I think it's really, really good, and I think it tells a good story. It feels like more Batman Arkham, but it's fun. Like, it's really, really fun. It's a fun to play VR game. The UI and elements and stuff like that are a little arcadey, and that might look weird when you're looking at gameplay and stuff. But ultimately, when you're playing, you're like, oh, it's just because I'm having fucking fun here. The way they translate all of the main Batman mechanics to VR, I just found so fascinating because it just seems so obvious. Like when you're doing it, you're like, oh yeah, this just works as it should. But why does it feel so novel and unique? I don't know. I guess like some people who make VR games like stray away from trying to directly adapt mechanics. I don't know. Something about it here really just hits really, really well. Like the way you glide. You grab the sides and you pull out.
That's good.
And then the feel of it feels and controls as it would in Arkham. Like your momentum when you let go, you can let go earlier to land on a ledge. Like all that just feels very, very similar. The combat, it escalates, and it's like first you're just punching guys, then you get to guys where if you punch them, like they block you, so you need to cape swoosh them and then punch them 80,000 times. Then there's like the guy with the stun baton, you got to jump over him. Like it has all that, and you're doing all that, but you're not. First of all, you're not like throwing up immediately. Because I remember the first like full motion 3D games, like even with VR sea legs, I would get sick. So the fact that it handles all that here is really, really, really impressive. It's so smart, and I know Ryan talked about it a little bit. How Batman in those games, when you press punch, like he will fly across the screen and punch someone. Like there's a lot of that, but it's also how the parrying works. The parry pops up on screen. You just kind of put your hand up to parry someone at the last second. But it will happen to enemies off screen. Like they're still fighting you in 3 dimensions. It's not like they're just going in front of you and it's a VR game. They're coming at you in 3 dimensions, and you throw your hand left or right to parry them. And then the game, somehow without you throwing up and getting sick immediately, spins and faces that person and sets them up for a combo. So it's just stuff like that just like the corny phrase, like it just works, but it does, and it makes it so much fun. And then the amount of little things they do with storytelling and characters in new situations and characters in situations you wouldn't expect to see them. And then also like cool little new bits on Arkhamverse characters and like a little bit more of their origins and stuff like that. But that aside, for me, it was just seeing some comic book like Batman characters and them having, so this isn't a spoiler because he's shown right in the beginning of the game, but like Matches Malone is in this. And I was like, holy fuck, that's awesome. So to have stuff like that, I don't know, it's just been a really, really good time. It's got Predator challenges, it's got like the combat challenges and stuff like that you can jump into. It's got collectibles. So it's got that full ass game thing that I mentioned.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited to play more of it. It is just one of those things where it's like I wish, and part of it being VR, it's like I wish I could just jump in and play it immediately. But I can't. I have to work up to building a tolerance, and so I'm glad to know that this game is worth building that tolerance for.
And I hope more people can experience, like I just hope that like even more VR accessibility options can somehow come to fruition.
Like there's a lot to tune in that game.
There is a lot.
There's a lot.
It has the full suite, the full like what these games should have.
Yeah.
But I just want there to be more, because like there's something about the feeling of like the first time you pull an open event, like you're like, oh, I've done that 80 million times in these games, I know how to do it. And then you get on a gargoyle and you're looking down at a room at all these dumb idiot guys, and you've detective visioned them and they all turn into skeletons, and you're like, I know what to fucking do here. And it's you doing it. It's just a really, really, really good feeling.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm done shilling. So.
That's good.
Shilling?
I'm really glad.
The game.
It's nice.
I just
nice to hear
breaking
a
news.
good word
Batman
about a
guy
VR
likes
title.
Batman games, but it wasn't always this way.
Yeah.
No. Hang on, are there bad Batman games? Let's think about this.
Oh yeah. Oh.
What's a bad Batman game?
Batman Rise of Sun Tzu.
When was this?
This was a GameCube.
Was
era?
it?
Yeah.
Was it based on the animated or what?
I think the art style kind of was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Batman Begins game wasn't too bad.
Yeah,
It was kind of cool. He just looked weird. His character model looked like a freaking skeleton. But yeah, anyway. The only other thing this week I'm playing, sorry I'm talking so much.
No.
Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered for PlayStation 5.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Are you doing before you buy on this or what? Why are you playing this?
Just a quick look.
Okay.
Yeah, just a quick one. Yeah, it's better looking. You can play it at what seems to be like 60 frames per second. There's a frame rate and a fidelity option. And at this point, with that old of a game, I'm like, why is there an option? Just give me good frame rate.
I mean, it's not that. It's like it's 2017. I mean, like I guess that was a while ago now. I mean, it was so cutting edge back then. Though.
It was. It already looked great.
It looked fantastic. It looked incredible back then.
And then it got ported to PC. The PC port at launch had some problems, if I remember.
ran
But then
badly.
that looked pretty good though. So here, what they did, the only thing I really directly notice is they've given the character conversations and NPC stuff the Forbidden West treatment.
Okay.
So they're lit like crazy now. They look and emote incredibly. They've apparently like overhauled a lot of these animations and stuff just for these conversational stuff. And it makes a difference. You're like, oh, holy shit. This like feels one-to-one with Forbidden West.
That's
Other
awesome.
than that, like, yeah, I don't know. I don't really feel too strongly about these games. I like them. But I don't like love them. So
yeah, that's the thing.
That's
as I've said many times. That's how. But look, I there are some people who do love them, but on the whole, most people just like them.
Yeah.
But then they kind of put them down. They're like, well, I just played that video game.
That sure
That's
was
it.
a video game.
You know what I mean? Yeah, you're not gonna. No one's getting a Horizon tattoo, as I've said many times before.
all I can say with this one, and I don't know how I'm going to make a full video talking about this.
I was gonna say, how are you gonna do that?
I don't know, man. But like the bottom line is just like, yeah, if you haven't played it, this is a very good way to play it. You should just do, you should do this. But yeah, that's the end. They didn't add like, so like The Last of Us Part 1, I was like, why are they doing this? And then when I played it, I was like, oh, you added some cool stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite have that level, but Yeah, it looks
But also,
good.
I think Last of Us Part 1 is very much like
It was a further
the faces are a bigger distance in time.
Yeah.
Facial animation technology has advanced so much, and
Yeah.
that is a game that benefits so much from that uplift. Versus like Horizon, the story's pretty good, don't get me wrong, but it's like the faces were also broadly fine. I don't think you're getting the same level of uplift here. I have seen some comparison, like, you know, some of the trailers they've released, they compare it.
Oh, they did tweak baby Aloy, who looked kind of weird.
Oh, she did.
Oh,
She
they
looks so
did.
fucking weird in the original.
I
She looks
regret
like
to
so
inform people
weird.
she still looks weird. Like,
Oh man.
but I guess a
She
little
looks
better.
so weird. God, I don't know what they were thinking with that design. Like, how do they think that's okay? It was just so bad.
I forgot what Baby A. But does Baby Alo look like Renes?
I don't even know how to
Oh my
describe
god,
it.
it looks
Were you gonna
like
say Renesmee?
Renes. Twilight. Oh
Hey,
boy.
baby Aloy.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no,
That's-
looks bad.
We love her. We love her, folks. Baby
Sorry,
Aloy, we love her.
Baby.
There's one picture that's come up on Google, and that is the most terrifying. Like, that's a doll
I
that
think
you
I
would
know the
find on
one.
eBay.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at the same one. So
Hey.
there
Well,
we go. All right.
Good.
What else? Are you playing anything else?
No, that's it for me.
That's
What
it.
about you guys?
that's
I
it.
got nothing else. As I said, I'm this next period is kind of really nice because I'll do a bit of Black Ops. I want to circle back to Never, from the
Oh,
team
yes,
that
yes,
made
yes.
I
Chris.
really want to play that.
I really want
wanna
to
play
circle
that.
back to that because that is meant to be wonderful. I want to finish off Metaphor because I'm like halfway through it, and I'd like to finish off the rest.
Yeah.
And November's pretty clear, so I've got the time to do that. I'm looking forward to hitting my backlog a bit, and Stalker at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Very excited, and then Indie at the beginning of December.
Dude, I'm gonna do
And-
the Alan Wake DLC over Thanksgiving.
Oh, absolutely! I
dying to
could have
do
totally forgot about that,
Yeah.
but absolutely plan to do that for sure. And yeah, that's it. So it's kind of a nice period coming up. I'm excited.
Golden Idol. Golden Idol.
I
Everyone,
know,
Golden
I
Idol?
know, but I haven't played number 1 yet, so I feel like I need to do that before I do 2. Otherwise, I feel like I'm wasting. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like I'd be
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do that.
There's some cool stories.
Yeah.
Well, moving on from that, we are going to do some show and tell, some stuff we've been enjoying, playing, watching, whatever, that is not video games. So,
Has anyone seen the new Venom?
no.
No.
God damn it!
As
I
a
wanna-
Venom fan, I protest these movies.
Is
such a
Hannah
snob.
Waddingham in it?
I don't know who
No,
that is.
Juno Temple's in it.
So, okay, so Hannah Waddingham was.
Wait, is she in it? Did they make her a big Venom lady?
No,
If
no,
so,
no.
I'm gonna go.
She's just at the so she's just at the Venom premiere, looking incredible. All
Yeah.
of the headlines are about her, and she's not even in the movie.
That's a seriously good outfit she must
awesome.
be rocking.
Oh,
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Mate.
Mate, thank you. No, she was Rebecca from Ted Lasso.
Oh, her.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
So, and
I understand now. I understand.
There is the dress that she wore for the Venom 3 premiere. She looks incredible, but it's like this leather dress. So I thought she was doing the homage to Venom
Right.
because she
I see.
was Disney bounding as Venom, but I guess not.
Maybe she's null. Maybe it's like an after credit scene and she's been null
Maybe.
all along. That's a comic book thing, sorry, but
Yeah, could be. Yeah.
no, the
No,
last
I
one
haven't
almost
seen
put
it.
me in a coma. I watched Venom Let There Be Carnage and I
Oh,
almost,
with the stupid
Oh.
Elon Musk dude, the techno. Oh, it was such a bad movie.
Yeah, that was
It
rough.
not
I
good.
didn't watch the second. I've only seen literally the first 5 minutes of the second Venom movie because we were around at my friend's house and my friend Kristen went, like, stop everything, we're gonna rent Venom. It's $20. Like it had just come to streaming.
I like the
20
first one.
bucks
It
to
was
And
fine.
rent it.
this is the second one, and she made us buy it. And she was like, I love Tom Hardy, he's so hot. And then we turn it on and she just goes, he looks like he doesn't bathe. And it made us
I
turn it
love it.
off. So we're like,
That's
okay.
the best part about these movies is that he gets to be
Yeah.
like the most weirdo freak mumbling guy.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
so good.
Yeah.
Um,
That's good.
What were we talking about?
what we've actually been watching.
Other things. Well, speaking of bad comic movies, I actually watched The Marvels for the first time.
Interesting. Like just out of left field, or you're
No,
watching
because
them
I have
all?
a project with my friend where we're basically watching every single superhero movie ever made. And so we're actually at the very end now. Like we've watched everything.
Did you watch the
And now
Punisher?
it's like
The Tom Jane one?
Thank you for adding that to my list. Now my friend and I
welcome.
will have to suffer through that.
No,
so
it's
that's good.
excellent. You're gonna.
Is it
you're
good?
gonna-
Is
You're
it?
gonna watch it and be like, "This was the greatest thing ever."
Okay, cool. That's not the one with was it Marky Mark or whatever?
Jonathan Travolta is in that.
Right.
Oh my
okay.
God.
Okay. So
Adele Dazeem.
yeah. So the Marvels, not great. Not
Funnily
great.
enough,
Not,
yeah, no.
Not good. There's an entire sequence where they go to a planet where their language is all song, but they all
That's cool.
still.
No,
It's not.
no,
It's
no.
really not. Just imagine like a weird Broadway musical sequence, but also very awkward and just odd. And it just. Nah, man, it was not a good movie. I do not recommend Colin.
Does it
the
have cool
Marvels.
stuff that I like the Kree or Skrull or
It
Super
does, but then it
Skrull?
kind of, funnily enough, it just kind of like but like literally at about a third of the way through the movie, they just kind of like put them on a ship and wave goodbye to the Skrull, and they're like bye, and then you never see them again for the rest of the movie.
What?
And then they're fighting against the Kree, and the Kree was obviously led by
Ben Mendelsohn?
Ronan.
Oh,
Yeah.
By who was like Lee Pace in the other one.
Oh,
Then they
hello.
have this other. Well, yeah, absolutely, totally, absolutely. But then they've got this other lady she's replacing him, and she just has no presence. Like she's got nothing going
No
on. Like
riz.
it's just no riz, and she's just this kind of not good. So don't recommend that. But then after that, we actually watched the old Fantastic Four movie with like Chris Evans and Jessica Alba and whatever. And it was really nice to return to that era of superhero movie, like before all the CG. And the other thing in the Marvels movie, the CG is out of control. Like there's one scene where they're kind of at this beachside area and they're going up a lift or whatever. And it's the cheapest green screen you've ever seen in your life. It's like,
God.
please just take them to the fucking Californian sea line and just put them in front of the fucking ocean. It's not that hard, So it was bad, but the Fantastic Four movie has seriously held up. I really liked it a lot, actually. Chris Evans as Johnny Storm crushes it. The Ben Grimm they got there,
Good
they
Ben
couldn't have done it
Grimm.
any better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I feel like anyone else after that's going to be a downgrade. You know what I mean? You can't top it. And Victor Von Doom, not great, unfortunately. He didn't have much going on either. He was a bit of a disappointment. But yeah, overall, really held up that movie. Really had that strong Spider-Man, like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, Sam Raimi Spider-Man vibe,
Okay.
Like a proper movie, extremely well shot, I would say as well. There were so many shots in it that you were just like, damn, that is cinema, like for real. So I do recommend, I'm not even joking, by the way. Like my friend and I were both remarking at various points, like, that's a really good shot, And it's pretty rare that a superhero film does that, So I recommend checking that out if you get some time. The old Final Fantasy.
Fantasy.
Fantastic. But that'd be quite an interesting watch, actually, watching the old Spirits Within. We'll do
Oh,
that.
I
Advent
used to
Children.
love that movie.
Sure, we all did. But then we all grew up and we're like, actually, that was bad. So that was bad. That's all I got.
I'll go next because mine is not that. Mine's like sappy. I saw We Live in Time, which is the new movie with Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield.
And Amelia de
The one with the horse? The one with the horse?
The one with the horse.
meme.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. Okay, sure.
I'm an Andrew Garfield enthusiast. Like he's just a great actor.
Him and this lady at the fish and chip
Amelia de
shop or whatever.
Monberg.
Oh, yeah.
They.
Yeah,
Oh
they-
my
Right.
god.
There's something going on there.
I'm amazing.
Oh my. What is it when
Yeah.
he's like? It's called flirting, Amelia. I was like, oh my.
I was like, damn, he got me there. Yeah. So the problem with this movie is that Andrew Garfield is perfect.
Too handsome.
But like too like he's just great. Like in the movie, he's just the best, And it's like the two main characters. It's a love story, but it's like the two main characters don't have a lot of flaws, and they're both just like awesome and hot and perfect, and they live in a beautiful, gorgeous life. But hardship then happens, and ultimately, I ended up really enjoying it because you see, if you see a trailer for it, you see anything about it, you think it's how it's gonna go. And it's a little unconventional, and it's a little bit interesting how it does it. And it's not one that leaves you like soppy, like girl crying for like this like absolutely sad scene. It's more of like a happy cry. Like, and it's more about like embracing the good things in life and not wallowing in all the bad things that inevitably happen. And it was just nice. It was really nice. It was also a very British movie. They were eating all kinds of weird cookies.
Oh,
and
that was it.
crackers the
Like,
whole time.
We call them biscuits.
Florence.
Yeah, those. Yeah.
We call them biscuits.
Andrew,
so like,
Andrew
okay,
Garfield's character works in like marketing for Weetabix. Yeah, and that's like a whole bit in the movie. They called him like when she was dating him, they called him like Mr. Weetabix, and I thought that was pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah, it's worth a watch. I did like date night, go see it at the movie theater, but watch it at home.
Right. Okay, because is it like it's not on Netflix or whatever, is it?
Not yet.
No.
Not yet. It'll be eventually. Yeah, sure. That's nice.
Yeah,
okay,
it had
cool.
a nice message, I think.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Yeah. What about you? What is Bingo Brawlers? You wrote down.
Okay,
Is that
so
a game?
Spoiler.
No.
Still
So
a thunder. Why
I'm
not?
technically cheating because this one is slightly video game related, and by that I mean it is video game related. However, I've really done nothing other. I mean, I went to my friends at the weekend, and I was supposed to just go around. We were going to do like watch some movies, have some wine. I ended up staying for about 30 hours. So it's been a busy week. Of just hanging around with my pals. But Bingo Brawlers, I've been watching it for a little bit, but it is a bunch of Elden Ring streamers, and they compete in a really cool competition that really makes me just marvel at the way people connect with video games. So what you do is it's usually 1v1 or 2v2. You can do it in teams, and you get this bingo grid. I think it's 5x5 of things you can do in Elden Ring or its DLC or both. So one of them will be beat 4 Everjails, or one will be get this particular weapon or kill a remembrance boss without taking damage. And these are all randomized, but both teams have the same board. And what they have to do is they have to either get a bingo or get enough squares on the board to beat the other team. And it's so fun to watch. There are some moments where, because they're the way that they strategize, is that they'll end up going for the same things at the same time. And I was watching one the other day, and I think it was Lil Aggie versus maybe Star Zero Chris. Can't remember. But they were doing the exact same boss at the exact same time, getting the knockdown and the riposte at the same time. And it's just,
Really?
it's nuts. Like the
Okay.
way that sometimes it just balances out like that. But if, like Souls games have such a really strong speedrunning community, and there are definitely so many videos on like I beat all the Dark Souls boss in alphabetical order, for example. But Bingo Brawlers, and as a broader thing, like what they have managed to do with Elden Ring, like I beat Elden Ring only using this headbutt move that you can only get from this one particular item in the DLC.
Right.
Like, it's just really cool.
Yeah.
And so it's also like kind of end of the day, I'm done playing video games, but I just want to watch something. And it's also just nice to watch people who are really good at something and when they're competing against each other. So it's really fun. The guy who runs it is, is it Captain Domo? Captain Domo is the guy who runs it, and he puts all the VODs and stuff on his channel. But what they typically do is all the runners will kind of edit together something that is a bit flashier, so you don't have to watch the whole thing. And they'll intercut, what the other person's doing. And so going back from season 1, where it's very rough, like even the uploads are in like 480p or something, to now where it's become this like proper production. You get some really big names in there. It's really fun to watch on YouTube. That, and I'm watching Bake Off.
Standard Lucy stuff.
Yeah.
Bake Off.
Classic.
Bake Off, Nelly. I'm Nelly loyal. She better win. Nelly and Dylan.
All right.
He goes, all right, okay.
All right.
All right, well,
all
Bingo
I
Brawlers, I'm in. What an
Yeah,
amazing
Brawlers.
thing. We live in like our own little bubble.
Weird.
There's so
Yeah.
much beyond us that is so cool.
That's right.
Man. Anyway, what a podcast.
I think that's the end of the show.
That is.
It was a good one.
Yeah.
I think it was a good one.
I
Yeah,
think so.
thank you folks for being here. Thanks to Ryan Payton and Paul Tassi for also
Yeah.
coming around. We'd love to see them again. But yeah, thank you to you guys for listening. If you stuck with us this long, we'd love for you to rate the podcast on a thing you listen to it on. If it's YouTube, click the like button. If it's not, give it the hearts or the 5 out of 5 or whatever. Also, be sure to check out the Substack. is
new thing on that is that we're gonna go for a regular publish time in cadence instead of just whenever I get around to it on a Saturday.
Aren't we also doing
exactly.
something like, are we doing like feet pics on it? What was that thing that we were talking
Well,
about?
that was gonna be the surprise, Jake.
Fucking hell, man!
No,
I shaved my toes and everything.
no, I so let me last week or the last issue of it, I put in like, hey, here's a dumb picture of me and my cats, which is genuinely how they act when I write the thing. But like each issue we're gonna try, and each one of us will put something fun in, a little picture of
everything. It's gonna be like, here's me eating McDonald's in my car.
Nice.
Here's Ralph playing tennis.
That's right. Yeah, well, that would be not a nice photo, unfortunately.
No, so something a little like, we want to obviously do more that it's fun to write and put together.
Yeah.
And so we're friendspersecond.substack.com.
Yeah, highly recommend. It's a good read. I'm biased, but yeah. Thank you, folks, for listening. We will see you in another week or so. What, bi-weekly, fortnightly? We'll see you then. But for now, thank you for being here. Tie your shoes and go to bed.